Are you tired of the same old conversations? Do you often find yourself struggling to know what to say? Are you over discussing the news, sports ball, or the weather? It's time to put boring discussions behind you by leaving a copy of the Nephilim Look Like Clowns on your coffee table, your toilet, your local library, mother's car, boss's office desk, or that person you really like's bed instead.
What the hell is this?
Oh, that? Why, it's just a book about how the modern costume of a clown is a caricature of ancient giants and modern demons.
Stay away from my children.
This is a conversation you can't wait to have.
My family used to think I was crazy, but thanks to the Nephilim Look Like Clowns, they know I'm crazy.
The Nephilim looks like clowns. It's no laughing matter.
Okay, right on. Well, hey everyone, welcome to today's show, episode number 2 of Truth Seekers. That was an ad for my guest's new book. It's called The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns. I believe right now you can get this on Amazon. Here's a copy. I got the green screen going, but very professional looking, very clean book, very well done. I just got my copy in the mail yesterday, and I'm looking forward to that. Let me go ahead and bring on my guest today. He's from UnderstandingConspiracy channel, Paul Stobbs, there with his book, an author, a presenter, a researcher, a family man. Welcome, Paul. It's good to have you on my channel.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. I've been a long time subscriber myself, like of your channel and following your work for years. So when you asked me to come on, I was like, yeah, so let's do this. It sounds like a great idea to me.
Man, I really like, we were talking before for just a bit, and I was telling you, I'm very proud of the book that you've written, the work that you've done. I really like the commercial a lot. Somebody that feels I need to promote myself a bit more than I do or have. I like how you stayed with the funny theme, the clown theme throughout it, sort of a little circusy kind of music in the background and stuff. And it's nice. I like that because it's for people that look into new topics and ideas and stuff, it can be creepy. It can be scary and stuff, right? I mean, and that's something we'll talk about is like the whole clowns, being associated with fears and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I like it whenever people can take it with a grain of salt, so to speak, and to take the information and present it in an interesting way. And it's fun because we're learning, and it's fun because it's interesting too. Let's begin. It's called The Nephilim Look Like Clowns. It's based off of actual historic research, and it goes from religion to religion and myths and legends and things like that, which are right up my alley.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the Nephilim. Let's start with the whole Nephilim connection. With somebody with a Christian background as well, that is really what boosted me onto the path where I find myself today, which is the book of Genesis, which is the Nephilim, the account of the flood, which to me is also helped to really pique my interest in the apocalypse, and the deluge and the story of Noah. And then of course there's that little enigmatic passage about there being the mighty men of old, the men of renown. The Nephilim were the Nephilim were in the earth in those days, or the giants, and also afterwards, right? So the Nephilim, what do you see the Nephilim as? Traditionally, they were known as like the Watchers and things of that nature. What's your perspective of the Nephilim when it comes to like the biblical description of them based on your research so far?
Okay, yeah. So there's a lot of misconceptions about Nephilim, to be honest, and I've heard quite a lot. People think fallen angels are Nephilim. I've heard that distinction quite a lot. A lot of people say demons are just fallen angels as well. I've discovered through my own research there's a huge distinction between the two, and they're actually all individually separate entities for a different purpose and have reasons for being in existence. Obviously, I come at this from a biblical perspective. There's no secret on my channel, and a lot of my research is grounded in the biblical mythology, and the Book of Enoch definitely fills in a lot of holes in that passage you mentioned there, that enigmatic little side note of Genesis 6, where it's like, oh yeah, there were these giants in the earth in those days, you know, and also after that, when the sons of God, you know, mated with human women and created these monsters that became like heroes of old. Anyway, Noah, you know, and then he kind of moves on, you know, he kind of just breezes past it and then goes on to talk about, you know, just the creation of man, and goes on to the flood. And it's kind of, that's such an odd little brief. It's like, wait, pause. What did you just say?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's one of those times.
Yeah.
You realize there are answers if you go to the outside sources. Things like the Book of Giants, you know, these extra biblical apocryphal texts, and like the Book of Enoch. It basically fills in that gap for you, and it tells you what happened in that time. And yes, it does seem like there were a faction of angels known as the Watchers who had a job to do from God, and it seems like they were told to come to earth and just lord over people, watch them, be the gods of the earth in a sense, you know, but not, obviously don't direct the worship towards you. It was the number one rule, you know, but be there as kind of emissaries for God and to make sure mankind's doing all right, you know. They failed. They basically failed. And it seems like something happened and they mixed themselves somehow with human women. They took wives, as it says. And as a result, the offspring of this union was what we call the Nephilim. And they were a mix of half angel, half human hybrid that kept growing. And initially, we're told they were men of renown. They were considered heroes, something beautiful, incredible, amazing, unprecedented. Look at these things, you know. Have we ever seen anything like it before? No. And they very quickly became worshipped. They got idolized. They became the gods. They became the demigods. That's what they are. The half divine here on earth, you know. And people worship them, but it seems like they just kept growing. And when the cattle and the herds and the grains of the field couldn't sustain the beasts anymore, they ate people. And then it very quickly degraded into an absolute nightmare of a place to exist, the antediluvian age, where it was cults galore, or worshipping the earth or the sun or the pantheons of gods or the giants or whatever it was, making sacrifices going left, right, and center to strange gods, also the giants, literal meat sacrifices. Eat this child's, and so you won't eat anyone else, please. You know, we'll keep you satiated for the day, type of stuff. And the giants were loving it, and they gave into that desire and hubris and pride, and were like, who can stand against me? I'm a giant. What are you going to do? You know. And that seems to be the story of the antediluvian age for the last 5 generations. I think the 6th generation from Jared, from Seth's lineage, is when they turned up for the first time. So there was 6 generations of development of humanity from Adam to Cain and Seth's lineage, both these two lineages going side by side. Cain had his own rebellion going on. He was angry and pissed off at God, and he was going off there, dominating the land, it seemed, you know, and creating cities and being very destructive with his knowledge, because he had the knowledge from Adam, from God, the 7 sacred sciences. And it seems like he was using that knowledge to subjugate and dominate, while Seth's lineages was more agrarian and more in line with nature, you know, more using God's knowledge for good and to live in harmony with nature rather than against it, you know. Well, and it seems like it's kind of an enemy of my enemy is my friend situation happened, and the Watchers, who it seems like they were purposefully making the choice to corrupt God's creation. It's like they too had a rebellion happening. I don't know if this is the Great Rebellion, which is described in Revelations, where a third of the angels. We don't know if that's what can be equated as the same event. But it seems like Samyaza and Azazel, or Samyaza was the leader of these Watchers. He made the choice to do this, and he even said to the angels, we know the consequences for what we're about to do. Let's make a pact. We're all going down together. So they knew what they were going to do, basically. They made a deal with each other that we're not going to chicken
Yeah.
out. We're going to do this thing. And we know the consequences, and
Yeah.
this is bad,
And in Enoch, it actually, I believe the exact verbiage was something along the lines of, let us bind ourselves by mutual execrations, which essentially is like hatred for our enemy. You know what I mean? Like,
Which is,
let's
man
be committed.
was the enemy. Yeah, mankind was their enemy in their eyes. And I think it has something to do with God favoring Adam over them. I think before Adam came, I think the earth was likely their domain. It was theirs, before God created something in his image, or as the Elohim's image, or whatever you want to define it as. And he clearly, some angels did not like that idea. They were like, no, I'm not bowing down to some kind of ape-like creature. I'm not being a serpent. I'm like,
it's crazy. It's very close to like the Lord of the Rings lore. I don't know how much you know about the Lord of the Rings like creation event and the Silmarillion and whatnot from Tolkien.
I know as much as the films would tell me, the movies would have told me.
Yeah.
So I'm limited.
It's very similar to like the elves having been created first, and then actually the dwarves afterwards, and then mankind later on, and mankind would pretty much inherit like Middle Earth or whatever. So some of the elves were kind of not happy about that, and some were cool with that. Very similar.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, exactly. So that's the story of the Nephilim anyway. It seems like the Watchers, through mutual anger towards Adam and God, rebelled, made this decision to team up with Cain, who was also in rebellion and anger towards God for being rejected and marked. And it seems like it was the daughters of Cain were given to the Watchers to mate with and create this hybrid race, which it was an attempt, it seems, to hijack the creation and to legitimately put their seed over man's seed into positions of rulership over the world. And it's basically that is the story of Jesus. His lineage goes all the way back to Seth, from Seth to Noah, from Noah all the way down to Jesus. And the whole point is to undo the corruption of this serpent seed, shall we say, that was injected into humanity. And there's been many arguments over when that happened. People say the devil slept with Eve in the Garden of Eden. We've heard that one before. And Cain was the serpent seed or something. I think it's simpler than that. I think it's as simple as the Nephilim are the serpent seed. They are half dragon, half human. And a lot of my work is explaining how the angels that did this, the Watchers, were the seraphim angels specifically. And seraphim quite literally means fiery flying serpent, or the burning of a serpent's bite, and this type of thing. And I think the dragons are the seraphim angels. They manifest as dragons physically. Well, of course, they can shapeshift and take any form they want. They're beyond our constraints. They are something else. But it seems like they favored the dragon imagery. And I think the Nephilim would have had features inherited from their fathers, dragon-like features mixed with human features. And this is where we get into my work about the Nephilim looking like clowns. It's because of that hybridization of human and dragon that we get clown features. So that's the foundation there. I like
that you really focused on like the cracking of what could be interpreted as like the paint of the clown on the cover of the book there, as they can see probably better behind you, because to me it also has sort of a symbolic representation of like scaly skin. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of things for this. I thought about a lot of reasons for doing this. First of all, it's represents scales, like you said, skin, the cracking white skin of the Nephilim, because they predominantly had a white base to their skin. A scale effect, and also it's actually a dried up sand. You get the sand lakes, the dried up sand lakes. I think a lot of it comes from, I think that's what that image actually is. It's not drying paint. And the idea was the dry places is where the spirits of these entities now reside, according to the Bible. Jesus describes it as when a demon's cast out of a man, he wanders in dry places, seeking a new vessel, basically, in order to get out of that dry place into a place where it can feed and where its thirst can be satiated. So yeah, it's like a multifaceted symbol, the cracked background, and it worked out quite well. My wife helped me make this, so you have just her to thank just as much as anybody else for helping me figure this out. But yeah, good catch. I'm glad you noticed that. I'm glad it worked. So yeah.
And also that another thing that I was thinking about too is our skin, our very skin is kind of scaly. Like if you have to zoom into it very close, but under a microscope, or if you just, have really good vision, you can see it's kind of scaly in nature. You know what I mean? It's not just all plastic like and smooth or anything. And the Nephilim were said to be giants. They were said to be gigantic. So this is starting to paint a picture, which helps people like myself to better understand why these creatures survived in our collective subconscious, I'll say, and provide a certain element of fear when you have gigantic beings with distorted features and cracked skin and whatnot who eat humans essentially. Have you ever read there's a book that was written by this one guy, I forgot his name, but it's called the Lost Book of King Og. Yeah. So even in that book, I can't, I'm not going to talk about whether or not it's real or fictional or whatever, but to me, like, I talk about the reality within fiction all of the time. And it does touch on, or at least draw from, a lot of different resources that are along the same lines. In that book, the Nephilim and the giants and whatnot referred to the human beings as our smaller selves. So it was like the humans were acknowledged as being the anomalous thing, not the giants being the anomalous thing. Giants in the world today would be anomalous.
Oh yeah. Well, that book's really interesting because it's basically just King Og screaming for like 50 pages about how much he hates Nimrod. Basically. Yeah, and it's just funny because he's like, but what I took from the book, never mind his own personal gripes about circumcision, Nimrod, which he was just obsessed about, is that the Nephilim by that stage had a serious fertility issue. They couldn't birth anymore. They were dying out through lack of females to impregnate, basically. And like I said, humans were a scarce commodity by that point, and they didn't know what they were going to do because it seems like they can't reproduce themselves. They need human women to do it. And I think the whole point of that book is him, this promised star child or something like that. This woman who was going to help him rejuvenate the Nephilim race or something like that. And Nimrod just came along and murdered the moon child. And Nimrod just came along and murdered her. And he's like, "Damn you, Nimrod!" And that's what the whole book is basically him doing, just screaming to the heavens that Nimrod's ruined their chance to continue being a race. But again, I don't know if there's much validity to it being actually a true account of something. But I thought the fertility issue was a good insight there to some of the issues that these genetic abominations had. They weren't compatible. They didn't have females. Like, it's odd, isn't it? It's just an odd detail when you think about it. But they needed
it also
women.
begs the question of how would it physically have been possible, given the rumors of how large these giants may have been or how tall they may have grown, and especially based off of like ancient temple doorways and things of that nature that can get up to like 30, 40 feet tall. Obviously there's traditions within Islam that talk about the heights of the patriarchs and Adam and how tall he was alleged to have been and stuff. It makes a bit more sense to me that there would have been some compatibility between those creatures that were seen as being much taller than the modern humans of the time, and themselves, because the modern humans of the time may have been gigantic in comparison to us today, right?
Oh yeah. The humans were definitely living longer and a lot taller back in the time as well. So, but this is why they're saying the OG Nephilim, like the original first Nephilim, are like the size of mountains. They're not tiny. They're not described as like 30 foot tall, like a tree. No, they're like 150 foot tall mountainous monstrous titans. And I do think our realm is scattered with the bodies of these things, and they make up most of our landscape today. But then I do think, as generational iterations of the Nephilim were birthed and the angels side of them was kind of diluted, and I think more closer to the flood, I do think humans got smaller and so did the giants. But the giants were always just a little bit bigger than the humans, and I think each iteration got smaller and smaller and more nuanced features got involved. And I think the Nephilim actually died before the flood. It's described in the book of Enoch that I think Michael's talking to another angel and witnessing the punishment of the Watchers. And Michael's like shaking at what he's watching God do to them. He's like, no one's ever going to do this again. Like, this is brutal. And
Yeah.
it basically God made the Watchers watch their children, their beloved ones, kill each other. He made them start fighting one another. And I don't think the Nephilim were that smart. I think they were prideful and full of hubris. And I think a lot of them had this mindset like, I want to be the only giant king. You know, me over everybody else. They're all quite selfish. And I think God kind of turned that against one another and made them start fighting each other or the petty power squabbles, while the Watchers had to just watch the children murder one another, you know, and then that's where the bodies fell. And I think for a long time before the flood, maybe 125 years, it's rumored, based on what God said, how, you know, man's time has been limited to 125 years, and then the flood comes. Something like that. And people equated that to age as well.
Right.
They'll only live for 125. But I think it also means they've got that long left before I send a flood. And then there was that period of time in the book of Joshua where it's described as the mixing of kinds. And it seems like any remaining children of Nephilim, so not the OG Nephilim, they're the ones who killed each other, but the children's children of those Nephilim, the watered down, lesser, smaller versions, the Eliud, the Elio, the Nephil, as they were called, different names for them. I think they were still around. I think they were teaching humans how to manipulate their own DNA by that point. And I think some angels who didn't mate with women who were in rebellion were still knocking about, and they were teaching mankind knowledge rather than mixing with the humans. They were teaching humans how to mess with themselves. And that's where we get the mixing of kinds. And it's described in the Book of Giants how they took like 200 of each type of animal and started mashing them together and just creating chimerid beings and cryptids of all shapes and sizes, you know, and just really messing with the genome of all of creation. And that's when the flood came. Like, you know, so the Nephilim were already kind of dealt with by that point. But we know they were there before and after, as you described, and we know through the book of like Deuteronomy and Numbers and all these type of things that they were warring with giants called the Rephaim in the lands of Canaan, and they were trying to kill them and wipe them out of the land. So they got there somehow, you know, and I've gone through many theories in the book of how that happened. There's many concepts and ideas. There's no direct definite answer, but I think an interesting one is if you think of like, okay, a flood's coming, and some people probably knew it. I mean, Noah was building a boat. And they were like, maybe he's onto something. Okay. So, and I think humans were likely thinking, okay, so if there's going to be a flood, maybe I need some gills or a fin or two. So I think that's where we get sirens from, mermaids, these type of things.
Okay.
I think humans started to hybridize themselves with fish. And that's where we get these creatures suddenly coming into creation.
Fish gods. And
they would survive a flood, would they not? And we have the Phoenician fish gods coming out of the seas after the flood and inspiring these cultures, you know, and it's kind of, is it the Dagon tribes and all these type of things? And you have to wonder, were they just the re-emergence of the corrupted human, the hybridized human, you know, just after the flood? And again, give yourself the ability to hibernate for like a bear or something, mix yourself with a bear. And then you could live underground while the flood's happening and sleep the whole thing out, you know, or give yourself the birds of an eagle and become a harpy, and you can fly above the rainwater and then rest on top of it because you're light as a bird, or your bones are hollow, you know, whatever. You can just float the flood out or something and eat fish. I don't know. Like, I think there's means. I think people took effort to prepare themselves for that coming flood. And I think everything on the land was destroyed, but not what was in the sky necessarily, what was under the land or what was in the sea, you know. And I think that could be a re-emergence factor of the corrupted DNA coming. And I also think it's possible because Rephaim, me and Gary Wayne were talking about this, but Rephaim, when you look into the multiple translations of Rapha and all these type of words, it's like resurrected one, basically, or healed or healer. Or a healed one. So it basically, undead is what we're talking about. A resurrected, healed, undead zombie. So is it possible some of these Nephilim that were just dead originally, the spirits after the flood went back into their bodies and were somehow resurrected and came back again? You know, there's multiple understandings of how this could have happened.
You're speaking my language.
We just know we know it did happen, you know. And again, there's multiple cultural names to describe these events I'm talking about and the creatures involved. Nephilim and flood, these are biblical terms.
And Nephal, tell everyone what Nephal means.
Nephal means to fall in a various forms of applications, basically. It can mean fall or falling over or falling or to fall from grace or to fall over onto the floor.
Yes.
It's used in multiple ways. And Nephil
Yes.
basically means tyrannical giant, ruler, or king.
Yes.
So a tyrant, a tyrannical giant king of a fallen nature is what Nephilim means.
Yes, it's so interesting because I love the etymology and whatnot. Also, to cause to fall, we have the fellers of the modern, right, secret societies and stuff. But I want to get back to the blending, the mixing of the DNA, the blood, and why that's so important, because this is going to trickle down throughout history, possibly, because
Absolutely,
they had children and their children had children, and then it comes all the way to the modern day. It's not just some fanciful, mythical, cartoonified event that happened a long time ago, and then it had no impact on the modern society, as we'll get to. But let's talk about the Watchers and what their description. Let's get into the I'm going to steer us back into the clown part of it, right? The description.
Sure.
The description of a clown is that they're typically very, what I call, to differentiate from Caucasian, I say phantazoid white. To me, phantazoids are beings mostly that fall down or come down or float down or descend from the heavens, from above. Like when you pointed to angels, you pointed up. I noticed just a minute ago. You were like the angels and pointed up there, right? Because
they descended to Mount Hermon, is how it says. So they definitely came down. That much is clear. We know that much. Yeah.
And so let's go back to the flood and Noah, the birth of Noah. Popular, myth and legend outside of the book of Genesis, specifically within the Genesis Apocryphon, I think it's called, within the Qumran cave scrolls that was found.
The Qumran cave, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And then Enoch, of course, too, right? What was Noah described as being, and how is that related to the Watchers, possibly the Nephilim?
Yes, so the description of Noah comes from the book of Enoch, and within that is the book of Noah. And it describes his birth, basically. And I'm trying to find it. I'm reading my book now because I've documented all the sources. Basically, chapter 11 I've titled it Biblically Accurate Angels, and I've titled chapter 12 Biblically Accurate Nephilim. So it's all the sources we have from extra biblical and the canonized biblical sources of the descriptions of all of these beings and what we can infer from it all. And I can't find exactly where Noah is amongst all of these, but basically he was born with white skin, like oddly, terrifyingly white skin with red patches, red and white, rose red skin with white, like a white base. He had golden hair and his eyes were glowing, like illuminating light out of his eyes. And his father basically ran to his father, and he says, I think my wife has given birth to one of the sons of God's children. Like, I think my wife has given birth to a Nephilim, is what he basically goes to his dad saying.
Right.
And I think his dad's like, no, calm down, chill. No, that's not what's going on here. It's just a divine human, because he's going to be the father of all of mankind after the flood. So he's just an extra special, touched by the divine human. But from that story, we can now infer what the Nephilim look like, because his father was convinced it looks like them. So now we know the Nephilim had a white skin and glowing eyes at the very least, with red patches.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a polka dot clown so far. Okay, so we know that as well. And then if you go to, again, the book of Amran, which is found in the Qumran cave, and this is the visions of Amran, and I think he was the father of Methuselah or something. It was really it's like a grandfather or someone. He's really an obscure father character through the lineage of Seth, and he was having these visions of angels talking to him, and it was Belial and Michael, I think, was talking to him or something like this. These high up angels, and he describes both of them of having faces. One had the face of a viper, and one had the face of an adder, and the same skin pattern as an adder as well, black and white. So we know the angels from that story had serpent features, animalistic serpent features. And we know there's a hierarchy of angels as well, with different classes. Some of them look human, the lower level angels, the messenger gods. But the ones that got closer to God became animalistic. in Ezekiel, we get descriptions of the living creatures, and they have like the horses of a lion and a lamb and a head all rotating around each other with like 6 wings. And it's like they're just these flaming monsters, We have the wheels, the chariots covered in eyes, and we've got the thrones as well. And then we have the seraphim, which are the closest to God, the ones who swim around his throne singing, holy, holy, holy. So these are the God's closest confidants. They have their wings, 6 wings, to cover up their eyes when they're in the presence of God, burn up to protect their bodies. The wings wrap around while 2 of them fly. But they can get close to God. And I think God would have trusted them to go down to earth more than any other creature to be the Watchers. Like, they were the closest to him, And I do think the Watchers, therefore, were likely the seraphim class, reptilian-looking, dragon-like creatures, And again, there's many inferences throughout many biblical sources. Well, and that's kind of what you have to do, because the Bible's not interested in focusing on looks. The Bible's interested in genealogies down to Christ and then salvation and what matters. It barely wastes any time talking about what Christ looked like. You know what I mean? It's not interested in looks, but you can get glimpses by going just to these sources. And then if you look outside of the Bible, you can easily find out what they look like, because every culture was touched by them. Every culture, many worshipped the dragons or the angels as gods, and even worshipped their children, which are the Nephilim. And we know what they look like by looking at these other stories outside of the Bible. And that's what my work does. It's an anthropological study of all the folk traditions of every continent's cultures and traditions, where they involve dressing like the spirits or dressing like their ancestors, as they call them. And they'll tell you what they mean by ancestor. They don't mean grandma and granddad. They don't mean that. That's just our language only has that word to describe what they're kind of getting at. And what they mean are the ancient builders of their civilization and cultures, the ancient gods. And they're talking about the Watcher class angels, the pantheons of gods, and their offspring, the demigods, and they dress like them to channel them, to bring them into their bodies. And what do they dress like? Anything that we would describe in the West as a clown.
Now, that brings me to the next thing I kind of want to slide into is the style of dressing and mimicking. And I like to call that the elven standard of beauty. So for me, I see a connection between what people call the elves or an elf, you know what I mean? And the Nephilim and the clowns and these, alien type, angelic, demonic, whatever people see them as, otherworldly humanoid beings or whatever. The El, which is how they were described initially, was the mighty leaders, which is what that is in Hebrew and Phoenician, which was the symbol for the bull with the horns, and then the symbol of the staff for leadership, or a shepherd's staff. That was the original way to write El. And then El turned into, all the way throughout time today, that word is translated as God, but not the God, not the all-encompassing God, but a mighty one. You know what I mean? We say God, but that's just sort of lost in translation, and it's just a loose translation of it, but it really means a mighty one, somebody different in comparison. And another thing too, so I don't forget it, is the norms of the times when these ancient books were written as well, right? Were a lot different. So for example, like we had the dragon lords from Asia and China and possibly Japan and stuff like that. They dressed like their El. They emulated, they looked up to these people. They were oftentimes described as, well, there were factions of them that appeared or were described as being beautiful to behold. Some of them were not. There was another class, it seems, especially when you look into Norse mythology, that were the opposite of beautiful. There was the beautiful ones, and then there was the not so beautiful ones, right? So they would that's
similar to the Tuatha De Danann, the Fomorians in the Celtic culture as well. The Fomorians with the deformed, horrible, like reject beasts, monsters, and then you had the Tuatha De Danann, who were the tall, live, elvish, beautiful gods of that area, and they were always at war with the Fomorians. And then obviously eventually the Tuatha De Danann got destroyed and mysteriously became the kind of like the fairy culture, the fairy elves in like another dimension. It's a very odd fate for them. But then that's no different than, let's say, in Greek mythology, you got the Clash of the Titans. You got the gods of Olympus fighting against the brutish Titans, you know, and it's kind of, you find the same pattern across many cultures talking about the similar events. But I do think the majority, I think when you look at a snake, okay, so there's many variations of a snake. They don't all look the same. Look at the reptile kingdom. There's many variants of what a reptile can take in terms of form and shape. And I think the Nephilim would have had an equal amount of variance in their style and aesthetic in the way they looked. But they had like a core set of features which you can trace through each culture. And predominantly, they had white skin, gold or red hair, huge bulging bug-like eyes of some kind, a massive wide smile with buck fangs sticking out the top and the bottom. And that's the base. You can find that pattern throughout all of them, and often they have the tongue sticking out as well. The Gorgons of Greece are a great example of this. The Rakshasas of India are a good example of this. The Wanginas of Australia are a prime example of clown-like offspring of the rainbow serpents, you know. And then if you go throughout many other continents, in like the colder climates, the hairier. So in Europe and like Siberia, you have like wild men, the wilder men, and they're like tall, club-wielding, hairy, beast-like men. But if you look at the cultures but in Bulgaria, now Bulgaria traced its heritage back to Thracian culture, which was around during the Greek gods' time of the Mediterranean south. And it's where Dionysus comes from. The Greek god Dionysus was a foreign god that came from this Thracian cult. And now in what's known today as that Romanian Bulgarian area today, they still have this ancient tradition going all the way back to these Dionysian worship festivals where they dress like the wild man. And the way they dress is colorful, wild, massive grinning masks with bulging eyes covered in gold patterned sequins and multicolored ribbons. They look like colorful, hairy serpents. Like, it's very odd.
Yeah.
Then you go to the Americas, and they have the tall white-skinned, red-haired giants that the tribes have fought with. The Paiutes are the most famous example of fighting with the city car, which are these cannibalistic, red-haired, white-skinned monsters that they went to war with, and they ended up genociding them. You know, that's the story of the Paiutes dealing with them and genociding them. Some weren't always so lucky. You have the Duwamish tribes dealing with the Nung-Nungs, which were basically the same thing, white-skinned, red-haired, tall, cannibalistic giants. But they lost that battle, and they stood up to the Nung-Nungs one day because the Nung-Nungs kept stealing their women, and children kept going missing and stuff like this, and they would like wander into the humans' camp and mess with them, you know, make jokes with them, pull pranks on them.
Yeah.
Like basically like lifting up their house and putting it in a tree and then laughing about it. You know what I mean? Like stupid stuff like that, you know. And what can the humans do? You know, it's kind of like, just deal with it. But one day the braves, the young men, stood up to the giants. This is the myth. And the giants went sick and just killed like 13 of the young men there by like throwing them into the air and just letting them slam down on the floor and splatter everywhere, ripping heads off the men, you know what I mean? And then just decimated the men of the tribe and just left. Just because they had the audacity to stand up to them. And it's odd, the stories that come out, it's like apparently these Nung-Nungs had a magic cream that they could rub on their skin and they'd go invisible. Like, they had such...
Interesting.
They were really rude. Like, they would always be making jokes with their phalluses and, like, doing horrible things. And it's kind of like they had this odd sense of humor. And it's odd that they made a point about their sense of humor when describing this particular tribe, this oral tradition. It's like they had a sick sense of humor. Like, and they laughed, you know what I mean? Like jokers, like jesters. So I thought that was quite an interesting tale. But even then, their fathers were the feathered serpents, the plume serpents, you know, Quetzalcoatl and these type of things. And you had the rainbow serpents of Australia. You have the dragons of Europe, you know, and the, you know, the land of the dragon is China, you know, and in Africa, they have their own weird... Something odd was going on in Africa. They had like fish gods and like they had like water dragons there. It's a different version, you know, and it's kind of, there's variance across the land based on environmental factors. So it's no coincidence that the further north they go, the hairier the giants got. Because
Yes,
it
I
was
think
colder, you know, and it's the further south you go, the more naked they are and
right.
gangly and thin and less surface area, you know, weirder, like, and yeah, it's odd, but make no mistake, they're just a snake's a snake is a snake is a snake is a snake. There's different variants for different environmental factors. Human snake hybrids. That's what the Nephilim
Yeah.
were fundamentally. But you can't get away from the core traits. You know, big bulging eyes, big
Yeah.
wide grin with the fangs, white skin. Can't get away with it.
That's interesting too. I want to talk more about and really get into like this next part, the commonalities as far as the descriptions, not just physically what their bodies look like, but also their styles of dress and things like that. Something I thought was interesting because I started researching two specific things that I never really considered before after I watched one of your recent live streams where you were discussing different genetic factors and predispositions to skin conditions and things like that would help to actually shape what they look like and their sort of cartoonified look that they have. I'm going to put some pictures on the screen as we go into this next part, starting with the Mad Hatter right here. I'll just let that play. But for example, I mean, obviously, first and foremost, there is the pasty white skin, right? Which is prevalent throughout history of humans replicating this, trying to make our skin pasty white. You know, obviously there was like the Victorian, era and whatnot. And then, like we mentioned earlier, Africa has all these strange stories and whatnot. This one's a great picture. That one right there of the nose condition and stuff. I'll have you educate everybody on that in just a minute.
Sure.
But all throughout Africa, there are many different tribes. And this extends down into the Aboriginal tribes of Australia and across the world. We can find these different tribal people that painted their skin and still do white as a reverence or an homage to their gods, essentially. If as I've studied these things, oftentimes they will say this is an homage of our gods. They will put on all of this white paint, white makeup on their body. Sometimes, it's decorative or whatever. Sometimes it's completely white or whatnot. And then, of course, we've got pictures and stuff too. So there's just the whiteness of it, and it's not Caucasian at all. It's albino without being albino. Right. It's
porcelain. It's almost like pearlescent white skin. Like they shined, they had like scaly white skin. It was odd. It was like paper white. It's not pink Caucasian rose white or peachy white, and like you said, you got great examples there. But yeah, the most common things these ancestor spirit culture worship, these worshippers, what they do is they put chalk paint on them or grease paint of some kind and make themselves as white as possible. That's just the base. You find a red feathered headdress made of reeds or feathers is also very common, or a highly elaborate, ornate, diamond jeweled encrusted like fabric headdress of some kind. Depends what wealth they have in the region where they're doing these traditions. They'll have their own means to do it. They'll have their own culturally specific aesthetics of doing it, but you follow the common aesthetics between all these cultures, and it's always a white paint base with a red headdress of some kind. And then they often, is really common, they put red on the nose. They actually red the nose up with red paint up and then put red polka dots all over the face, or multicolored patterns and squares, or red somewhere all over the body, kind of on top of the base, and they're trying to. They tell you what they're doing. We can speculate, but just ask them, and they've openly told you we're mimicking the spirits, we're mirroring them, we're dressing like the gods to channel the gods. It's a tool to them. The costume is a tool. It's not just a bit of fun. It's like it serves a specific purpose. They're trying to emulate something that's going on in the spirit realm.
Yeah.
Because when the Nephilim died, they never left the earth. They just became disembodied. And that's explained in Enoch. They became the wandering spirits, the unclean spirits. They are demons. That's what we classically know today as demons. They are the disembodied spirits of these once clown-like giants. And it's no secret in the DMT community, the psychedelic community, that when you go to the DMT realm, which I believe is just the the warp to the woof of the physical world. It's still the world. You're not going anywhere special. You're just seeing more of what's here, you know, the spirit dimension to the physical. Like, I call it the plumbing of the universe. It's a perfectly necessary part of existence, the spirit realm, you know, the astral realm. It needs to exist for this to exist. It's the code that projects our reality, but it's the place of disembodied forms. It's the place of no physicality. In fact, where we are here, physical, is the prize. They're trapped in a place without a body. They're trapped in that code and blending into each other and bodiless and formless, you know. And but most people who take psychedelics end up going to this place. They see jesters. That's the most common thing they consistently see. Jester looking like entities with big wide grins and huge bulging eyes and horns like a jester's hat and multicolored pattern fractal skin. And obviously they're in like a disembodied, weird psychedelic version of the former selves, a lot more hyped up and a lot more colorful. But when they were in physical form, they had serpentine clown-like features. So it's hardly surprising in spirit form they look like jesters. And these are just words we have. They don't dress like a jester with bells and have a scepter and wear a silly hat. You know,
Yes.
the skin is shaped like that. The form is shaped like that, you know, and it's kind of, and these are all inherited features from the reptilian dragon side of the family. Yeah.
I like to call that cartoonification, just the telephone game of time and how subtle changes and perceptions and whatnot. So I want to talk about this. The next feature I really want to talk about, I mean, I want to get into the clothing and stuff too, but the nose, the red nose, the clown nose. You mentioned, and this was great for me because here on my channel, I've discussed, I love to talk about, as do you, I've seen, the Dark Ages and the medieval times and whatnot. But specifically, I really like the bestiaries and those that show these mutant tribes of humanoid beings, how humanoids, creatures or humans, can and have at times past, according to legend, become mutated to the point where it's prevalent throughout their entire tribe. It's not just like, oh, I saw one guy that sort of looked like he had a dog head. No, I saw an entire island tribe village of hundreds of dog-headed people, or just as an example, right? So the nose,
is that the Blemmies and the Silocephaly and the
so it could be possible that this is also something, if it's something that can happen to humans and the Nephilim or the Nephilim and all of those other angelic type gigantic humanoids, it could happen to them too, right? You mentioned rosacea, and a byproduct of that is rhinophyma, I think is how you pronounce those. Possibly.
It's actually rhinophyma is considered like end stage rosacea. It's like the most extreme form of rosacea. Once you get to that stage, it's like the worst possible way rosacea can manifest. And it basically looks like, well, you can even get medical examples of this, not like even a mask. This is a real, this is a real thing that human beings today have to contend with quite regularly, you know. And it's basically where the nose keeps growing and it keeps expanding and getting bigger, and it gets filled with pus in many ways. And it becomes, like you see there, a giant red bulbous ball. The nose turns into a clown nose. It turns into what we would traditionally describe as a giant red sphere on the end of the face. And the only way to get rid of it is to shave it off with a hot wire and resculpt the nose into something more human. And that's the treatment. They literally just carve away and make it into a nose shape again and let it heal, you know, in a horrible, painful process. And it's genetic. It's completely genetic why this happens. It's either going to happen to you or it's not. Okay, there's nothing you can do to exacerbate it or prevent it or make it, because a lot of people naively think, oh, that's just old men who drink too much. They get this nose, you know. It has nothing to do with alcohol. And people still argue with me about this, that it is. And I'm like, no, it is. Look at the medical literature. It has nothing to do with drinking too much. It's a genetic predisposition which predominantly white people have. It's called the curse of the Celts for this specific reason. And it can manifest the curse of the Celts in two ways: extreme rosacea or hemochromatosis, which is too much iron, the inability to process iron out of your body. So not anemia, which is the opposite. This is hemochromatosis, where you have too much iron. Now, I have that. I have hemochromatosis because look at me, I'm as white as it comes. You know what I mean? You can't get much more Celtic and white than me. But so I have hemochromatosis. I have an issue processing iron. It's completely genetic. I only have it because both my parents carried the same genetic marker and it manifested in me. And both parents have to have it for the child to develop it. And even then, there's no guarantee it'll activate either. It just happened to activate in the 1 in 4 people who it does in me. So I'm very unlucky. But some people instead get the Curse of the Celts manifested like this. And they get this rosacea where they get red polka dots on the face and the skin, blotches, which again is a clown feature, you know, predominantly having the white skin with polka dots. But I believe the Nephilim, because they had incredibly pale skin, inherited from the daughters of Cain. And we can get into where that comes from in a minute. I think there's an extra biblical text that gives fascinating insight into where the white skin comes from. But if you have a lack of melanin, this seems to be the reason you develop this condition, you know. And then the Nephilim had zero melanin. They lacked melanin through and through. And it wouldn't surprise me if as they got older, they had the genetic corruptions that humans just develop. And they also ended up with an end stage rosacea, rhinophyma, bulbous nose at the end. It seems like a natural conclusion, you know. And that explains the red nose in a scientific grounded way, which is plausible because again, it's predominantly pale skinned people who suffer from this issue, and the Nephilim were the palest of the pale. And again, if you look at the book of Lamech of Cain and Leviathan, it was only released about 4 or 5 years ago by the Vatican as an extra biblical text, okay, and it's considered blasphemous. It's just like brutally blasphemous book, you know, because Lamech of Cain, I think he was the 7th generation from Cain. Okay, it's just a story about him befriending a giant, taming a giant reptile monster called Leviathan, and then going on a mission to discover who the hell did Cain mate with to create us. Like, he's going out there trying to find an answer to this question. Like, where did we come from? And why do we have white skin? Why is that? Why do only the children of Cain have extremely leprous, it's described as leprosy white, chalky, leprous white skin? And he says that's the mark of Cain. The mark of Cain is having this looking like a zombie, like a vampire, having like this colored skin, my microphone, you know what I mean? But it's like chalky and sickly and disgusting, you know what I mean? And if it's the daughters of Cain who mated with the Nephilim in the 6th generation from Jared, then that's where the Nephilim inherited their white skin from initially, from the mark of Cain. They carried that, passed that down. So that's an interesting source. And again, that's an extra biblical text explaining that was the mark of Cain originally. And again, the book of Lamech of Cain is crazy. You should read that. Just read that book. The stuff that's in there is nuts, because it's giving you a glimpse into the type of world an antediluvian world really was, with Nephilim walking around. Like it's a horrible place to be. And you were talking about the physics of a giant mating with a woman. Right. You know, they go into that.
Yes.
And penetration isn't necessary, is all I'm saying. Okay.
Right.
It's talking about girls just basking in the enormous phalluses and bathing in the semen. It's kind of like it's horrible. Like, it's truly horrible, you know. And like the women of Cain just whoring with the watchers in that mountain over there, and no one knows what goes on, you know. And it's just horrible, like kind of. It's just a disgusting world to be alive. You've got monsters all over the place, and you've got these cults being created all over the place. And it seems like the sons of Cain were the ones heading up these monster sun worshipping cults or monster. Like Lamech creates his own cult revolving around worshipping Leviathan, this snake creature he befriended and was riding around everywhere. It's kind of chaos, just absolute chaos, like everywhere. And that's what these books give us, that insight into. Sure, the some things may be off, like it's talking about the daughter of Lamech marrying Noah and all these type of things, you know. And there's 2 Lamechs. There's a good Lamech from Seth's lineage, and then there's a bad Lamech from Cain's lineage. And a lot of people assume it was the daughter of Lamech from Seth who married Noah and then birthed the children, you know, and all this type of thing. But this book is saying, no, it was the daughter of Cain's lineage, Namar of Lamech, who by the 8th generation the curse was lifted and the mark disappeared.
Interesting.
So she tricked Noah into not realizing she was the daughter of Cain, and then got on the boat with him and allowed Satan onto the boat. And it's this whole other thing. You know what I mean? It's like a whole, but people think that's blasphemous to even consider that, you know, because that would mean Cain's lineage survived after the flood through the mark.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to I want to talk more about the skin condition itself, because you mentioned melanin in the skin, or lack of melanin as well. When I was researching earlier, I found that there are essentially two types of melanin. There's something called eumelanin, which is responsible for brown and black hair, and this also goes into the skin and stuff too. And then phomelanin, or pheomelanin, I don't know how to pronounce that, responsible for red and yellow pigmentation, also in the skin and in the hair. So people that have an abundance of pheomelanin will tend to be born, like yourself, with red hair or blonde hair. They'll have more of a blonde.
Fe is the chemical name for iron.
Yeah.
Is that because of the pigment of iron rust goes red? Is there something to do with iron that causes the red pigments?
Yeah, I don't know.
That form of melanin, because if it's got pheo in it, I'm assuming that's the Latin root.
It could be
for the name. And again, I have the condition where I get too much iron. I don't process it, and it's a predominantly white person problem. Again, it's mainly any race can get it.
Yeah,
but it's like 99.999% Caucasians who get it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And it's an iron issue, so it wouldn't surprise me if the red pigment comes from iron pigmentation in the skin and in the body.
Yeah, and then we also have, going back to like the style of dress, Gothic, right? When I was in the 90s in high school, that's when I went to high school. Gothic was really, you know, coming back onto the scene as like this trendy style of dress and appearance. People were putting on way more white makeup and trying to look more almost like a vampire, or the, you know, maybe not a zombie, but they kind of look like, you know, the Addams family essentially. And the word Gothic comes from the word God, or by extension El, or the mighty ones, right? The Gothic, or those who are goth-ish or god-like, right? And then of course we have the architecture style Gothic. Interesting, because we have another correlation with the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages and the times when the castles were built in these pointy cathedrals and the Gothic style of architecture. So there's a Gothic style where the gods lived in a very gaudy type of architecture, large buildings, huge doors, spires, points, domes, things of that nature. And then what the actual Goths looked like, which is interesting because vision is related to looking like, and then we have Visigoths and things of that nature too. But this whole Gothic style, this goes back to what I call the elven standard of beauty, and trying to emulate what these beings looked like. We essentially may, just generally speaking, some humans, it seems, according to the writings, looked upon some of these as being very beautiful. So it stands to reason that they would emulate their styles of dress, and they would try to dress like them. This trickles down into our modern day fiction. Like, for example, in what's coming to my mind right now is the movie The Dark Crystal. There's a whole TV miniseries that was like the prequel to The Dark Crystal, called The Age of Resistance. And within the Age of Resistance, they show the Skeksis, which are these, they would, for all intents and purposes, be the Nephilim in the movie. They would be they dressed gaudy, they dressed Gothic, huge frilly collars and things of that nature too. But the little elven creatures that sort of ended up worshiping the Skeksis, their royalty started dressing like the Skeksis would dress, right? So I find that a lot of that may have trickled down into the purely human side of things, you know, even
it did.
Tribes and stuff.
It certainly did, and that's what I'm doing in my work. I'm showing that. I'm saying, look, these tribes are emulating a standard of power and beauty they look up to. There's a reason they have this fashion sense and this style and this tribal dress and the way they do these things and the traditions and the rituals. They are trying to emulate what they consider a symbol of power, like something that, and either it's beauty or power that they're emulating. It's one of the two. It explains headboarding, for example, you know, where tribes squash an infant's head with boards at birth to try and create an elongated skull.
Yeah.
It's because it's a standard of beauty that they're trying to emulate. Like it's like the gods looked like that, and they want to try and like it's like an aspiration towards that type of style is what they're trying to do to their children, you know. And the more cone shaped the head, the more beautiful they are by that standard of that culture's beauty standards, you know. But then you have the long neck people who put rings around the neck to stretch it out, you know. And that's a standard of beauty, having a very long neck. Well, it's the emims, I think, or there's Zamzu mims, so they're the terrifying ones. They're known as the long-necked ones in the Bible. Yeah, they have very long serpentine like necks, like odd-looking creatures. You know, is it possible that tribes try to emulate what the Nephilim look like in their specific regions, which is these long neck creatures? You know, you have in Australia where you had the Wangina walking around, these clown-like looking pale-skinned electric gods that had power of electricity, you know, quite literally look like clowns. Well, the tribes around it paint their skin in the same electrified patterns and the colors in the same color scheme and polka dot patterns, like they depict their Wanginas on these rock art depictions that are ancient and have been there for thousands of years. They base their beauty standards off of the representations of their ancestors, which are the gods from their perspective, the elves, if you call them, you know, whatever that is, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to show. Like I'm trying to show through, and it's all visually represented in my 44 episode series on my channel. I brought the images to back up what I'm saying, because I can talk about it, but when you see it, it's undeniable, you know. It's kind of, you see the pattern, and it doesn't matter what continent you go to, they all have an ancient memory of when these things were around, and they have continued through tradition to dress like them. And that's how we can know what they looked like through the and also there's rock art, there's paintings, there's stone artwork, there's carvings, there's many more things we can find where they show you what they looked like. And I think they were around a lot closer in time than we think as well, because you got some pretty fresh depictions of these things in some places, you know. And who knows when they were actually fully wiped out, if they even were. I don't know. Our history is such a convoluted mess. I don't really know how ancient really is sometimes when I'm looking at some of these things, you know, when I'm like, how have these cultures survived their traditions for so long and not changed? Maybe it wasn't that long ago, for all I know, where these Nephilim were still around inspiring them. Or maybe it is just a case of constant communication with the spirit realm has kept them in touch with what they look like continuously. Because they're not just dressing like them. They're taking psychedelics as well. They're doing these rituals on hardcore, potent entheogens while dressed like the gods, while doing the chants and the repetitive drumming and the music and the dances. It's all one cacophony of ritual to get themselves into a trance-like state, to give themselves as open as possible to seeing the spirit realm and letting the beast in, you know, letting the spirit in type of thing. So it's a really intense ritual, but it's like they all do it. From India to Australia to Africa to North and South America to Europe, it doesn't matter where you go. The Inuits as far north as you go, the lands of Siberia and China, Chinese people, the Indo-European area, they're all doing it. Like they all have this ancient folk tradition somewhere, and we like to think, you know, humanity is more civilized today and that kind of thing doesn't happen anymore. But it's like, no, in fact, we're not the norm. Like in our anglicized, westernized view of that type of thing, we don't think spirits even exist. Predominantly, we think that's it's primitive, barbaric ways of viewing the world. We're past that now. We have science and reason. You know, we don't believe in that kind of stuff. Like we don't think dressing like something means anything or has any impact on anything in reality. But you go to every other culture that's ancient, and it's like, no, we dress like things to channel things. Like what we wear is incredibly important, and we get power from them. Like we gain stuff by channeling this ancestor. Like we let it in our body. And then we drink things, eat things, drink blood, whatever it is, because that's what the spirit wants to feel. And it will feel those pleasures through the vessel's senses it's now in. It'll use your fingers, your tongue, your nose, your eyes, your ears, whatever sense, and it will feel things vicariously through the vessel that it's now inhabiting. And then as a thank you, here's knowledge. Here's the strength of 10 men. Here's the ability while I'm in you not to get stabbed or cut. Which is useful for a tribe in the rainforest warring with another tribe. You know, these type of things are handy, you know. But I think in a more westernized way, we have people who still do this, but they dress like clowns, and we're not supposed to know what they're actually doing, because the costume of a clown, as you call it, this cartoon. What's the word you use? Like a cartoonized way or something?
Cartoonification.
Cartoonification.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I've consistently called the costume of a clown is a caricature of Nephilim features. It's a cartoonized amalgam of Nephilim features. Okay, it's like it's a symbol that represents how the Nephilim looked.
Yeah.
It's not like a direct copy, because all they need to do is have the symbol, adorn themselves in that symbol, and they're creating a channel just like these other cultures do. And it's done in secret in the West, because
Yeah.
we have means of spiritual warfare here. And I know yourself or your audience may not necessarily believe this, but I believe, because we're a more highly Christianized part of the world, the Western Hemisphere and the Anglicized world, when we encounter demons, we tend to quickly knee-jerk reaction, go to Christ and say, no, in the name of Jesus, I rebuke you, get out, and try and defend ourselves by calling on God and Jesus. So I think the spirits in the West have to be more careful. They can't just readily openly possess people and let the whole village see it, because we have weapons against them, and they know we have those weapons against them, because we have an understanding of Christ and the authority we were given over them through him. Now, if you go to a random tribe in the middle of Africa who's like perhaps not been either Islamicized or Christianized, but still deep in the ancient ancestral roots religion, that the demon there knows there's no chance any of these are going to call Christ out at any moment. So they tend to be more readily open about themselves. They let the tribe see the person be possessed. They talk to the tribe through the vessel they're now possessing, and they literally channel messages through, and the tribe's all there like clapping along saying, isn't this great? The gods have come to talk to us, and they're not worried about being cast out or having Jesus evoked, but in the West, they have to be hidden. So it's an occult practice here, and they do it through our version of the ancestor spirit worship costume, and that's called a clown. And it's been hidden under the layer of, it's just fun for the kids. It's a harmless symbol of laughter and joy. It's just a silly thing, the clown is such, don't think about clowns, they're just silly, they're not serious. But it's identical to the costumes worn by these other cultures who know what they're doing. They know why they're doing it. So I don't think being ignorant to the spiritual law makes you immune to it somehow. I think if you walk around dressing like a clown or whiting the skin up, putting on a red headdress of some kind, wearing multicolored fractal pattern clothing, all of those things combined together. It's not enough just to do one thing. You got to kind of combine a lot of it together. The closer you get to clown, the closer you're getting to channeling. Like that's the danger of it. It's like wearing an Ouija board. It's the same concept, And I on my channel, maybe you want to get into it, but the history of a clown costume is quite literally an invention of Freemasonry. They created that costume that we know today. It was the son of a very famous Freemason in the 1800s, and I mean 1799 to 1800 is when this happened. He was put in charge of a theatre in London. And now this guy's father, Charles Dibdin, was a powerful, powerful media mogul. Like he was so famous. Like you can't understand. Like to compare him to someone today, I don't know who you would. I don't even know who you would compare it to. Like, who could be as famous as Charles Dibdin was in his day? He was quite literally writing all the music, all the plays. He was single-handedly equated with, you have brought our armies through the wars with your music. You kept the morale of the British army up with your songs that you wrote for them that they sing on their ships. This guy was idolized by even the government, because of his contributions to art and the industry of Britain at the time. So Charles Dibdin, this incredibly famous member of the Freemason Lodge in Leicestershire, his son, in true nepotistic fashion, was given the privilege of heading up the theatre in London. And he became the screenwriter, the playwright for that thing. So while his son was there, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. For some reason, he decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change the costume of clown. And it's never been done before. Okay, clown's based off of Pedrolino. Pedrolino is the Italian name for the servant of the rich man in the Commedia dell'arte tradition. Okay, and the Commedia dell'arte tradition began with the collapse of Rome in 500 AD. And for 1,000 years through the Middle Ages, this troupe of traveling performers developed their art, and they created what's known as like pantomime, as we call it today in Britain. And they had this list of stock characters, which all represented archetypical figures of any civilization: the policeman, the rich man, the soldier, the servants, the mayor, whatever it was, characters people could instantly recognize. And you'll find Pedrolino was the servant of the rich man, and he always dressed in plain white rags, nothing special. But then suddenly in the 1800s, like over 1,000 years of unchanged dress, this son of a prominent Freemason decides to dress Pedrolino, or as Britain called it, clown, which meant clodhopper, a drunken fool, in a psychedelic, fractal patterned, multicolored dress of some kind. Unheard of. It's never happened before in history, And from that day, that costume became the industry standard for all future clowns. And it's never described anywhere in any memoirs where the inspiration came from. Nowhere is it mentioned anywhere where Charles Dibdin got the idea to change the costume. It's just mentioned that he did it, and it was a hit, and everyone loved it, and everyone copied it from then on. Well, if you look into it, it turns out his father, the famous Freemason I mentioned, was heavily connected to India. I mean, like, his brother, Tom, was a soldier in the East India Company, currently colonizing India. He had made trips back and forth to India regularly. He was going to move to India, but had to cancel his trip due to bad weather. And, traveling by boat back then in the 1800s was life or death. It was pretty dangerous, and I think he chickened out because the weather was pretty stormy. But the point is, he loved India. He knew Indian iconography very well, and he clearly brought it back to Britain and told his son, dress the clown like the Rakshasas of India that adorn the temples. And there's a specific type of costume that the Rakshasas wear. It's a war outfit. In fact, it's an outfit worn for war, which the demons on the temples wear. And they often have their arms up in this position, and they're often depicted in a handstand position as well in Bali, where you find their iteration of the Rakshasa. But you find that costume on those temples, and that Rakshasa demon's countenance with the wide smile, bulging eyes, half dragon, half human hybridization, was mimicked perfectly in the brand new costume of a clown. So the brand new costume of the clown in the 1800s, which became the standard of all costumes of clown today, was modeled after the Indian flavor of Nephilim, known as the Rakshasas. And it's uncanny. They look identical to each other. Like this, you put the two pictures next to each other and like, that's the same being, But no one ever mentioned that anywhere. It was kind of, they didn't think people would figure it out, I don't think they understood. But now we have the internet and the ability to actually compare these things and make these analyses. It's very obvious where they got their inspiration from. So a clown has always been a representation of a demon. It always has been. Even prior to clown being a thing, through the medieval period, the closest thing we had was Harlequin. This is where modern jesters, kind of Venetian jesters, get their style from. The diamond patterns and the kind of like the acrobatic live leotard effect jest type entity. Well, this was Harlequin. Harlequin was only introduced in the 1600s. And Harlequin was introduced because this band of traveling performers kept bumping into European folk tradition of the wild man, where people would dress up like wild beasts with clubs in fractal, multicolored, crazy pattern clothing and get absolutely pissed and hammered, and then go out and have a huge party and then fast for like 40 days afterwards. So because they kept seeing the wild man in every European country they went to, they incorporated it as a stock character in their performances. Harlequin was also the servant of the rich man. Okay, so Harlequin and clown, both servants of the rich man. And it seems like Harlequin was originally a demonic type character. He was a brute. Like, he was brutal, used his staff, which represented the club of the giant. The wild man always had a club. Well, Harlequin had a slapstick, and he would use it as like a magic wand. He would slap the ground and the scene would change, and he'd keep the crowd entertained while the scene was changing. That's kind of his role. But he was rude, he was crude, he was energetic, he was cheeky and naughty, he was demonic. He was meant to be the demon because he literally represented European demons. Like, he was modeled after them. He was modeled after the wild man. And then as time went on, he got a bit more fancy. He got a bit more fancy lad about town. He got a bit more civilized, a bit more witty, a bit more quick. But the other servant, Pedrolino, was always his like dim-witted foil. He's the quick-witted one. The clown is the slow one. That was the comedy, But as time went on, because Harlequin wasn't acting so demonic anymore, he got a bit boring. It seems like British clown took over that role. And with that changeover of demonic role to clown came the costume change at the same time. And then he was dressed like a demon. But this time, Indian version, the Rakshasa rather than the wild man. So this is historically documented. Everything I've said there is known. These are known knowns. I'm not making this up. Like, everyone knows that this is what happened and what the Harlequin was always a representation of. And I've made the connection of, and the clown's costume change coincides with the Indian version. You can see it happening here. So clowns have always been a representation of a demon, even by a Western British standard, historical standard. They have still always been a representation of demons. And then when you add in all the anthropological stuff we've been talking about, how these other cultures have always dressed this way, you have to wonder why it was injected into popular media of the day, the theatre. And it seems like it was purposefully put into the public forefront in the West to bring to the West this ancestor spirit channeling tool. But it's under the guise of something funny for the kids. So people can dress like a clown and get away with it, not really knowing that I'm doing this to channel demons, but you just think I'm here to entertain kids. You know what I mean? It's the perfect cover when you think about it. It really is. And the Freemasonry has really rolled with this. They really have, because not long after this, circuses appear and the expansionist movement into America. And the traveling circus becomes a thing because theaters that stay stationary weren't very useful in America, because America was always moving as a moving population. So they created the railway systems and the traveling circus. And with that, you find the people running all these shows were all Freemasons. Every last one of them was a Freemason affiliated company. And P.T. Barnum, who was equated with bringing the freak show into the circus, got into the circus game quite late in life. He was a member of the Oddfellows. He invented the 3-ring circus. Well, 3 interlocking rings is the logo of the Oddfellows. They're incorporating their own Freemasonic satanic symbolism into the circus performances. 10 circuses got together and they put on a giant performance called King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba that traveled all through America. It had thousands of actors and people involved from all these different circuses, animals galore. It was an epic beyond comparison. You couldn't imagine a show so large. Every circus involved, Freemason run. All the costumes made by the same companies who make costumes for Freemason lodge rituals, the little aprons they wear and stuff like that, and the little medals they put on, all made by the same companies. All the backdrops, everything, all made by the companies who make the stuff for the Freemason lodges. And they put on this giant epic ritual that traveled all through America, dedicated to King Solomon, because Freemasons are obsessed with Solomon. Then you look at a circus, symbolically, the ringleader or the ringmaster of a circus has a black top hat.
Yeah.
Okay. That represents the crown of Solomon. How do we know this? Go to a Freemason lodge. The only member allowed to wear a hat, traditionally a black top hat, is the worshipful Grand Master of a lodge. And it tells you publicly on the websites, this represents the crown of Solomon. He is the king of the lodge. And in the symbolic rituals, it's the highest honor, which is why only the leader gets to wear the crown, the hat. So they've just transferred that lodge ritual into the circus. So you have the ringleader who wears the hat. So King Solomon, according to Jewish texts, and myth, used a ring given to him by the angels to control demons to build his temple. So he's the ringmaster. He's the Lord of the Ring. He is the ringmaster of the circus, wearing the crown, the hat. And what does he do? He orchestrates the ritual with the clowns to create the performance.
Right.
Well, King Solomon used his ring to orchestrate the demons to build his temple. It's just lodge ritual analogized into, it's an analogy for lodge ritual, and it always has been. And we just don't know that. We're not supposed to know that's what all these symbols represented. And now, once you crack the clown code, it becomes very obvious what they were doing, and they were getting the public to take part in these rituals, and not knowing it, paying for it, in fact, to go and see them. And to the uninitiated, it's just fun for the family, a bunch of animals and men doing silly things,
Yeah.
But to the initiated, they're watching their lodge ritual being performed on a mass scale like nothing ever seen before, and it's like, wow, the detail, the level of detail to symbolism is uncanny, but to the uninitiated, it's nothing. It goes over their heads. It's like just a silly performance.
Just strictly entertainment.
Exactly. Well,
which is really not entertainment. It's really amusement, because the word amuse means without thought, right? So they're not thinking about the reality, the truths behind what's being presented. They're allowing themselves a time to not think purposefully, which is to take a break from thinking, because there's so much to think about, and thinking oftentimes can bring fears and worries and anxiety and stuff too. You know what? As you were talking too, it also reminded me, I do the Truth in Movie segment, decoding the movies and stuff. And I just recently did Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And that also brought together some of that circus symbolism, being that Willy Wonka has a cane, wears the top hat, almost kind of, you could see a ringmaster look to him. And then of course he's got the Oompa Loompas that are all painted. They have painted faces and stuff too.
Same
and then
thing.
all the outsiders were like, oh my, this is all weird. This is all so strange.
Oh yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, the thing is, circuses are kind of old now. That even today, the Shriners still run the circuses in America. Most of them, like there might be the odd one or two. The Cirque du Soleil isn't run by Freemasons, I don't think. But even then, the Sun Circus, as it's known, is rife with this kind of symbolism all the time. Interdimensional being symbolism is all throughout the performances and on the posters. But all Shriners have a clown sect. They all have their own subsect within each shrine, where they dress like clowns and go and entertain dying children in their charitable run, Shriner-run hospitals, And even then, that seems like a huge tax fraud gets done with all of that. I've got it all in the book, actually. I documented this. There's a lot of dodgy stuff going on with those hospitals and the clowns. I'm not going to lie. But even then, a level above shrining is the Royal Order of the Jesters. Like, you have to be invited to be a jester as well. You can't just ask to be a member. Invite only, and only taking 13 members a year. And it's of the highest honor to be a jester, to be a member of the Royal Order of the Jesters. And they claim we're a fraternity that's solely focused on fun, nothing else. But to be a member, you have to be a Freemason.
Yeah.
Fully fledged, 33 degrees. You have to go through all of shrining to the top levels of being a shrine. And then you may get invited to be a jester if you're lucky. If you ask, you'll never get to be one. And it's kind of, why is the highest pinnacle honor of the craft of Freemasonry to be a jester? That doesn't make any sense. What's that got to do with anything? Like, until you contextualize it with my research and you realize, because it represents the very beings they're in contact with, the demons, like who they're in communion with. That's why the Shriners dress like clowns publicly. They're channeling demons, and lo and behold, they go to dying children in hospitals while dressed like a clown, and they cover it saying we're here to perk them up and make them have a laugh before their last moments. Is that what you're really doing? Or are you going to a terrified dying child dressed like the very thing you're channeling to loosh off the energy or something? What's really going on? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, also they say a lot of truth is said in jest, right? And so think about this. They've got oftentimes they had the court jesters. These were types at the very least of these Nephilim that we're comparing them to, who had the ears and the eyes of the kings and the queens and whatnot. And then that sort of trickles into modern day magicians that perform and are hired by or go from country to country. Houdini, actually, there was a whole conspiracy around Houdini, and was he a spy? Was he actually in cahoots with like different governments and royalty and things of that nature. I wanted to comment more. I want to just go right back to because I'm going to check off some stuff on my notes here. The style of dresses. Let me put this picture back up here. So this is just one example of a traditional clown thing, but I want to start with the head and kind of go downward as we discuss these things. Now, I've discussed the conical hats time and time again, especially whenever doing my research of the El or the Elven race, the Elu, as they're called. Even within Freemasonry, they have a ranking system within, Freemasonic rites and stuff, right? One is the order of the Elu, right? The leader of I forgot what it's called, but they call them the Elu. That U is really a V in the ancient, terms, and the V turned into an F. It's elf, the order of the elf. This conical hat, this Phrygian cap, sometimes it's loose, sometimes it's hard. The wizard cap, the witch's cap or hat or whatever. Even princesses, even royalty themselves would sometimes wear a very long, conical hat. It looks like a birthday hat, and sometimes it's got a little, round ball, a fluffy ball, sometimes a veil, especially the princesses. They had a veil that was attached to the tip of theirs so they could throw that veil over their faces. Yeah. Which I feel like going back to them being very pasty and their skin condition, and maybe possibly even what was it called? Rhinophyma, right? Where the nose becomes very hard and bulbous and becomes very round and stuff. I was researching that with the rosacea and the rhinophyma, and basically it seems like the general consensus is that no one really knows what causes that. It's genetics. It's got something. It's in the genes somewhere. Yeah. I have always put forth a theory. It seems to me that these creatures are photophobic, or that they may have been photophobic to an extreme degree initially. Their ancestors over time, developing a certain resistance to the sun's light, but they're extremely photophobic. And those people that are more photophobic, which means not to be afraid of the sun, but to be very sensitive to it, right? Either they have to wear sunglasses all the time. It hurts the eyes. It can actually burn the skin much faster the more photophobic somebody is. The sun was one of the things that they say is the main causes of rosacea and rhinophobia and stuff. Whenever people are exposed to the sun more and they're more sensitive to sunlight, then it can start reddening their skin and stuff. They get sunburned easily and stuff. But this hat at the top, I want to talk about the hat. So this is the hat of the wise in the ancient times. The dunce cap initially was not for stupid children as an insult. It was worn, this huge tall cap was worn or put on children who were bad in the hopes that it would make them wise, like the wizards, or like, I don't know, so many different people that wear pointy, regal people and whatnot that were more wise. And initially that's what it was for. It was seen as the hats that people wore who were the wise people, who were educated more. And it stands to reason that these Nephilim were described throughout history as being educators as well. Like we talked about Azazel in the book of Enoch and whatnot, teaching. He was the one that would actually taught children. It says to paint the faces, right? Yeah. So this is very interesting. This goes back to my Elven standard of beauty, where we painted our faces to exaggerate our features, to make our eyes look bigger, to look more like them, wider mouths and things of that nature, to look more like the El or the Elu or the elves or the Nephilim or whatever. And then it's possible the whole reason they painted their faces was so they didn't look so scary to us, and they were trying to look more flush, more human-like, trying to add a bit more, of whatever, so they didn't appear to us as being so scary. So it's interesting that we would copy one another. But one thing that we find a lot within the clowns is this conical hat. Birthday parties, the clowns at the birthday parties, children wear the birthday parties, they wear the conical hat, right? What are some other features of dress? I know you pointed out the shoes. I like the shoes thing that you pointed out. Any of the dress styles or commonalities or motifs that you've seen throughout the whole clown symbolism, gestures, and all of that?
Yes. Well, if you break down first of all just the costume of a clown, a Western clown, something like this, you covered the white skin, red nose, the pattern on the face, the red hair, the conical hat. Obviously, we know the elongated skulls have been found all over the earth, you know, that we have always equated in the conspiracy world to be the Nephilim, unlike anything else, you know. We know that the Nephilim had double rows of teeth and I assume elongated mouths, so that often the clown paint goes that way. But then if you actually look at the costume, the first thing which you'll notice is the ruffle around the neck. That's always been equated to being a representation of just Elizabethan servant wear, you know, having a loose ruffle. Having one that's floppy is indicative that you couldn't afford the starch to make it all hard and rigid like the queen could, you know, something like that, or the rich aristocracy. The more starched your ruffle, the more influential you were, you know, it's that kind of thing. But obviously that having a floppy ruffle represented being like a servant or something, or unable to afford, you know, the high-end fashion of the time. But it's also representative of a specific reptilian feature, which is known as a lizard's frill.
Oh, yeah.
And it's distinctly a reptilian thing. The frill,
like in Jurassic Park, that one
yeah,
lizard.
Exactly, yeah. And it spits the black goo at the fat guy's face, doesn't it? Yeah, that's what I mean. It's kind of that's what you remember it, but they actually have frilled lizards in Australia. They're quite common. They're everywhere. And it's distinctly a reptilian thing. So I do think the frill around the neck represents the reptilian frill. But they've masked it as a clown ruffle of Elizabethan fashion. But another thing that clued me onto that is I watched a film that came out in 2014 called Clown. It's actually called Clown. And it's a Scandinavian film. And it's created this whole mythos. It's fake, by the way, called the Cloyne. So the Cloyne is a Scandinavian reptile monster that lives in a cave. Okay. It's a lizard monster that eats kids. Right. Mm-hmm. And it looks like a clown in this film. And what happens is a man finds a clown costume in the attic and he needs it for his daughter's birthday because he can't get a clown costume or something. All the shops are shut and he promised to be a clown for his daughter's birthday. First of all, what little girl's requesting a clown for I don't know about that, but he finds this costume in the attic, puts it on, does the performance, everything's great. But then he can't take it off. It's stuck to his skin. It starts fusing to him. And he tries to rip the red nose off and rips his nose off. It's attached to him, you know what I mean? So throughout the rest of the film, he's kind of semi-noseless, you know what I mean? He's got this horrible torn up face and he starts changing. He starts transforming. His hair starts turning into like a clown wig and like gets multicolored and horrible. And what happens is he's been possessed because he's wearing the skin of the Cloyne, right? So he's now becoming the Cloyne and he has to eat 5 children to be free of the curse and to be able to take the skin off. But the funny thing is, this is quite literally a film made 2 years before I even made my research or even made any of these connections. I didn't even know about this film until 2000, and I think it was recently 2022. I think when I came back to YouTube, I discovered this film. So this is like, you know, I'm talking like 6 years after the fact this film was released. I'm watching this and I'm like, he has around his neck a ruffle, but it's got spines running through it like a reptilian frill. Okay. And that's what gave me the hint. I was like, this film's telling you, like, okay, that's a reptilian feature. That's another hint to what the clown costume is really getting at, you know. So that's one thing. That's one other part of the clown costume. Obviously, the multicolored patterned costume itself can be indicative of 2 things, because this is just a caricature. It can be indicative of the disembodied nature right now, looking like fractal monsters in the DMT realm, but it can also be representative of serpent patterned skin. Another thing as well, clowns are often depicted with the slit going down the pupil, a black slit going down each eye. That's a very common feature. There it is as well. Well, that's a predator trait. Predominantly predator animals have slit pupils. It's a tactic in order to be able to have pinpoint precision on a flat horizon to be able to track their prey. You'll find prey animals like goats or lambs have a flat pupil going the other way, horizontal, because it gives them a wider view of the plane to look out for predators, you know, so it works both ways. So anything with a slit pupil is a predator. And these things used to be dominant predators on Earth who were eating humans, and they likely inherited slit pupils from their serpent seraphim parents. So a clown having a slit down the eye, that's the film I'm telling you about.
Yeah.
clown. So that's what he was transforming into, you know, and he was slowly, his skin started to change into that color. You know what I mean? Like he starts off looking like he's wearing a normal clown outfit, but it turns into this. He turns into this, you know, and I think it's very telling. You know, they've been telling you in media for ages. Another funny one as well is Supernatural, the series. I think it's like that's the film again, yeah. So in season like 2, episode 2, I think, or episode 6 is one of the two. It's the stories about a circus clown who a little boy lets into his house because he knocks on the door. It's like, invite me in, you know, and the boy invites him in because it's a clown. And then once he's in the house, he eats the kid's parents. Okay. Turns out this clown is actually an ancient Indian demon called a Rakshasa. Okay. This is in 2002 that film came out. I only got told about this like a year ago. I'm already 7 years into my research by this point and already made the Rakshasa connection. And here it is being confirmed in a show 20 years prior. They knew what they were doing. The clown represents demons, specifically the Rakshasa demon. That's the costume that it's based on. So they've always known this. This is one of those symbols that once you know it, you can't unsee it. It's everywhere. They've put it in everything all the time. Like, it's always been there. I mean, it is a prime example, like you're showing right there. It's an interdimensional entity that manifests as a clown in the physical realm that feeds off fear, you know, and then cannibalizes children while they're at it.
Right.
If thing's a Nephilim creature, it's it. And he has a huge skull, doesn't he? An elongated, bulbous skull as well. And they've always known these things, is what I'm trying to get at here. And they've always shown it in the media. Is there any reason, you know, McDonald's has a mascot as a clown? You know, is there any, when you know what people know what McDonald's get up to and what the rumors are about what they're really serving you. I mean, it's kind of, but then you look at all other mascots like Wendy's, Jack in the Box, things like this. It's kind of, they've always kind of leaned more heavily towards those types of features when it comes to eating meat. You know what I mean? To have flesh being eaten.
Like, it's so weird to me too. Like, as I was, you know, prepping for this video with you, I was thinking about the McDonald's thing, but then I was like, wait a minute, Jack in the Box, that's a clown. That's not. It's they turned it into some sort of bobblehead, you know, thing or whatever. But that's a clown.
But even symbolically, a Jack in the Box, a demon in the void, you know. And if you play with the box enough, you know, you mess around. It's like Hellraiser, you know, the cube. You play with the cube, and then they come for you, don't they? The Cenobites come for you, the pale skinned monsters from the void. It's kind of, why is it a jester that pops out in a Jack in the Box?
Yeah, to scare you. A jump scare.
That's the thing that's hidden. That's the thing in the realm. A mime wearing the black and white fractal patterns always pretends to be trapped in a box and can't communicate with you. It's silent. Okay, well, the Nephilim are disembodied, trapped in the astral realms, unable to communicate with you. It's symbolically all there.
Yeah.
It's a mirror of what's really going on in reality. And we don't realize it, but rest assured, it was created for us by secret societies and imposed on us in ignorance. And we continue the tradition unknowingly, unwittingly channeling demons through this costume. Like, it's nefarious, you know, it's evil. Like, what these people have done is evil. I'll tell you now.
Yeah. There's so much to really break down. So I wanted to go back to a comment you said about how oftentimes they're sticking out their tongue, or they're portrayed as sticking out their tongue. Right.
Yeah.
I was looking up genetic defects and mutations and things of that nature. There is a condition that, you know, some people are born with where their tongue is overly large. They have overly large tongues that they're born with. And it gives the impression that the mouth is much bigger and they can't put their tongue back in. They have to have a surgery to actually cut parts of their tongue off, the tip part of their tongue, so that it will, they have to like sew it back together. But when they do this, hold on, let me make both of us big here. So when they cut the tongue, people, they're born like that, and they have like the babies. If you see pictures of babies, I don't want to show those, you know, but they have a huge tongue sticking out the whole time. When they do this surgery to fix that, first of all, like, you know, that mouth looks much bigger and stuff when you have your big old huge tongue sticking out. But when they cut the tongue, they give it a lizard look. They cut it, they slice it in the middle, but when it's done, it looks split. They give them a split tongue. In order to make it look normal again, you have to sew that split together so that it goes back and it's a lot smaller. But if you didn't sew it together or didn't have the ability to, they would just cut it like that, and it would look like a lizard's tongue. You know what I mean? Like a split tongue kind of deal. They also had so they had let's just go over a few things we've covered so far. There's a couple more things. We're talking about the Nephilim, the Watchers of old, looking like clowns and whatnot. Their physical features. Paul also gives great information about the demon connection, the spiritual connection, what energy they are said to have carried amongst themselves, basically, oftentimes being seen as evil. They were feared because oftentimes they were seen as being cannibalistic and eating humans. Matter of fact, before I forget too, it puts a whole new thought or twist on the Little Red Riding Hood story too. Whenever she says, "My, what big nose you have," like big old clown nose. The wild man being more hairy, possibly. We talked about them being the Goths, the gods of old, or seen as such by some and worshipped as that by some. Clowns, jesters, jokers, mimes. I want to talk about the etymology as well. I did bring this up here, and you mentioned it earlier too. So clown, I'm going to read here from Etym Online, from cloyne or cloyne, man of rustic or coarse manners, boor, peasant. That's what it came to mean. A word of obscure origin. I love it when they say a word of obscure origin, or even better, a word of unknown origin, because to me it presents a mystery and a riddle to figure out. The original form and pronunciation are uncertain. Perhaps it's Scandinavian dialect compared to the Icelandic Clooney, which reminded me of George Clooney, obviously. Clumsy, boorish fellow, but also Swedish, clones, a hard knob, a knob. And then that brought me back to the nose, the knob nose. They have a knob nose, I thought that was an interesting connection. Danish klunt, a log or a block. Clumsy person, clone. I also wondered at times, especially given their very white, pale appearance, if there might be a connection to the word clone. You know what I mean? And I wonder if going back then, if we were to see them, if they wouldn't have like distinct differences the way we do, and we see like you look much different than I do or whatever, but maybe if they were very similar looking, as depending upon how they were actually born, if we're talking about physical beings. We talked about their dress, their style of dress, the dunce cap, the wizard cap, the cap of the wise, etc., implying knowledge. We talked about how in the book of Enoch, they were considered teachers, that they taught mankind different things, or parts of mankind different abilities, crafting weapons, painting the faces and whatnot, the dividing of the roots, making drugs, mixing together what was known as pharmakia. Their tall hair. Now, have you noticed on some of these, I'll see if I can find one here, but on some of these more regal pictures of nobility and whatnot, if we look back towards the Victorian times, they had these huge hairdos and hairstyles. I'll find one here, but the hairstyles were so tall, so large, that they were, I wonder, like this one. This was they called this the macaroni, right? It was a macaroni style, which is where the whole American song of Yankee Doodle, the whole macaroni in his hat, he called it macaroni, all that. This is a macaroni style where they had what looked like they just manipulated the hair, because maybe we project that upon them, or maybe they're like that elven style of the elven standard of beauty, like I was talking about earlier, where we dress like them, we try to look like them. They powdered their faces and whatnot to be very pale and pasty and stuff, but they also made their hairstyles very beehive type, almost like, I wonder if they had cone heads and that's just their hair growing around their head. This is one example of that, where they had, and also it stands to reason, if your head was conical in this aspect, I'll just leave this one up, then your hat would, also you'd have to have either a little hat on the very top, which is, how clowns often do, or you would have to have a hat that fits, which means you would have to have a very long top hat or a a longer style headdress or whatnot.
Hmm.
They also had oftentimes they carried parasols, right? Oftentimes they would have umbrellas or parasols or a wand or a stick or a staff or, like you said, the slapstick. Gloves is another thing that they would wear that transferred onto nobility and transferred onto Freemasonry, that they oftentimes had gloves. And like I said, I speculated whether or not they were, I feel like there may have been photophobic, the original ones, to a certain degree, where they would needed to keep all that sunlight. Let's think about this. If they were extraterrestrials, some people believe that they were like aliens from, out there in the cosmos or wherever they're from, not Earth. If that were the case, just supposing, it could be that this, a different light source could be more harsh than whatever they're used to. And so they would try to put on as much clothing and cover as much body parts, or, even like the neck, like having huge collars and stuff, to keep all that sunlight off of them, or veils and things of that nature. The large shoes you also mentioned, is probably symbolic of them being gigantic and having giant feet, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Um,
Again, tiny umbrellas, tiny hats, stilts, big gloves, big shoes, all exaggerating the features, making them bigger, taller, representing the fact that they were giants. It's a caricature of the truth. It's a hint towards giant features coming out of a tiny car, for example, because they're enormous in comparison to a normal sized car. Multiple,
I like that. Yeah.
multiple clowns coming out of one small car is just like a legion of demons coming out of a human body. And a car, symbolically in dreams,
A vessel.
has always represented the human vessel,
Mhm.
a means to transport yourself through reality. So a car represents the human body. And to have multiple clowns coming out of the human body is to have multiple demons. So symbolically,
Nice.
it's always tongue-in-cheek been there. But again, it's a cartoon version. It's like a caricatured version of the truth. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've hit on a lot of points there, which, this is how vast this theory actually goes. I'm not just making this up. Like,
Yeah.
it covers a lot of facets. There's a lot of, I couldn't cover it all in 2 hours. Like I said, I have 44 episodes and hours and hours and hours and hours of like podcast visits, fleshing all of these things out in detail. I mean, a lot of people like the more pop culture references, like, let's say, serial killers. John Wayne Gacy, serial killer clown, killed 33 young boys, 33 being a Freemasonic number, first of all, but only started dressing like a clown at the height of his killing spree. And then you realize that he was only an hour and a half drive away from his local Royal Order of the Jester Lodge. He was a member of the Moose Lodge himself, the Blue Lodges in that area. And he was also only a couple of hours drive away from the Indianapolis hub headquarters of the Royal Order of the Jesters. And when you realize that the Royal Order of the Jesters are involved in human trafficking, and it seems like he got caught talking to 2 young men about trafficking young boys to him, it's likely he started associating with this secret society and then started dressing like a clown when he realized the power it would give him while he was murdering people. So it was like a transactional thing. I'll dress like a clown, murder and rape these young boys. The demon within me that's now being channeled gets the pleasure from it. He gains some kind of power. I think it was all intimately linked when you really start looking into these things. There's a reason for this. And there's also examples of people who have dressed like clowns and inadvertently ended up becoming killers, like whether they liked it or not. There was one story of a woman this young girl who was having sex with her boyfriend. She said, let me just go change, put a clown costume on, freaked him out because he was terrified of clowns and she knew it. And then she stabbed him 17 times in the chest.
Dang.
While on top of him. Like,
yeah, forget that. I would have stopped at the clown outfit.
Was the clown costume necessary to do that? But it seems odd, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Then you have the story of the Florida doorstep killer. And this is a woman, supposedly, allegedly, who, she opens her door and gets shot in the chest by a clown holding balloons and some flowers.
Yeah.
The clown leaves the flowers and the balloons at the doorstep and walks off after killing this woman in front of her child, by the way. The young boy grows up, after witnessing his mum get shot. Anyway, time goes on. And this person has practically got away with murder, I think. I don't know what's going on right now. I think she got off on a technicality or something like this, because it turns out it was the husband's lover who murdered the wife. But the case went on for so long due to lack of witnesses and evidences that she moved with the husband. So the husband actually went away with this woman who was being accused of being the murderer, because it seems like they were having an affair. And yeah, she was still dressing like a clown and has been seen captured dressing like a clown in a restaurant they were organizing and running together in some other state or something. Like, it's a really messed up story, but the point is she dressed like a clown to go and murder somebody. There's plenty of examples of like cartel members dressing like clowns while going out to murder other members of other gangs. It seems like clown killing is really common. Like having a clown involved with murders is actually
the
more
killer
common
clowns,
more common than it
motif.
should be. Yeah, it's more common than it should be. It's
Even
odd.
the queen here, off with your head. You know, she's basically portrayed as a clown.
That's another feature of Nephilim. You know, the high brow ridge with the blue shading.
Yes.
Well, the Nephilim would have had large, glowing blue eyes. That's another common descriptor. So that's just to make it look like when say you close your eyes,
right?
with that makeup on, you end up looking like you have enormous eyes.
Yeah.
It's another nod and a wink. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's there. It's all there.
You know what I also wonder too? Like I do research into comparative mythology and stuff, and when it comes to beings dropping down from the heavens or coming down from the skies, I've found many examples where it's not just humanoid, but animals as well have said to have come down from the skies. Like a lot of Native American legends, they talk about these holy animals, or the first animals. They dropped down from the heavens. They looked down upon the earth and they descended. They were able to descend safely for some reason, instead of just falling at terminal velocity and squishing into the ground.
You got the thunderbirds, haven't you? You got the raven as well. That's another common one.
And oftentimes they're white. The really ones, especially if they're prophetic in nature, like look for this sacred animal. Jesus comes back. He's on a white horse. There's the white buffalo, right? And oftentimes they're seen as appearing in the heavens. There's also sometimes there's references that people make to what's known as the white devil. I'm specifically thinking of Ace Ventura: Pet Detective Part 2, when he's called Oquinsu Orcha, the white devil or whatever, like white devil. Well, it's interesting that there would be white devils that descended down. These are like fallen angels or fallen creatures or whatever. And that made me think too, because I talk a lot about like the plasma apocalypse and energy and electromagnetism and the role that it may play within our world and beyond our world. And I theorize that there are different, what I call places of power, which are places that are more energetically charged than other places, either on the surface or below the earth within the hollows, or beyond, above, which, I'm more of a firmament kind of guy myself. But if these beings come from places that are more electrically charged, they have more electricity within the environment and the atmosphere and the air, then it may affect their spirits, their minds, their synapses, and other things, allowing for things that seem fantastic now, like telepathy. So if you have these white beings that come down from some energetically charged region or up from within the earth, inversely, then if they're telepathic in nature, they would be more mime-like, right? Like they wouldn't be used to just speaking to one another when they just, talk through thoughts.
A great example of that is the Wanjinas of the Kimberley regions of Australia. So they don't have mouths. These are a good example of clown-like offspring of rainbow serpents. So we know where they come from. And they supposedly taught the people of the region how to build and how to make civilization, but they don't have a mouth. Apparently it's something like if they make a noise, it like tears apart the fabric of the universe. They have there's a reason why they don't have a mouth, it's like it's something to do with the sound, but they're also equated with bringing rain and thunder. They have electricity coming off of them from all angles, and their body, what they wear is a load of white dots. And they're supposed to represent rain coming down from their shoulders, which looks like a giant clown ruffle. They look like clowns. Like, it's unprecedented how much these things look like clowns. It's actually odd. It's the most odd representation you've ever seen. But yeah, I find it interesting. Again, they are silent mimes who came and taught mankind things, I assume through telepathy if they couldn't speak. Okay, right. So something like that. But Australia has a very, very odd mythos about spiritualism. They believe in something called the dream time or the
Mhm.
dreaming. And they think the dreaming is kind of like an ethereal realm that's forever with the physical realm. And there's no such thing as spiritual or physical. It's all one. And they're kind of in this constant psychedelic mode of perceiving reality. And they believe there was an ancient time known as the dreaming, where creation happened, where giant serpents carved the mountains with their bodies. And it's kind of like that's where they get their origin myths from of where these creatures came from. And there's multiple odd creatures in Australian mythology, but they're all vicious monsters. Like they all do horrible things to humans. Really
Yes.
nasty stuff, you know. And it's kind of, but the Wanjinas are considered like more benevolent in a sense because they taught so much great stuff to humans and brought them out. But they were working on behalf of their parents, which were the serpent gods, you know. So it's kind of, they're a quintessential Nephilim analog, but that particular flavor didn't have a mouth. So
Yeah.
you know, it's odd. It's very
I
odd.
think-
But in every other sense, they look just like a Western clown. If you can get it, you add some
Yeah.
images up, like it's uncanny. Like you look at that and you go, that's a clown. That's like
Right.
a stereotypical big red afro clown wearing polka dot clothing with a white ruffle.
Well, here I'll
You
put
know what I mean?
I'll put these pictures
Yeah.
back up. I want to hear some of your commentary on it. But as far as the mouthless creatures, that's come up through in the medieval times. As far as those legendary tribes of mutated humans, there were according to legend, a tribe of humans that didn't have mouths, and they breathed. They carried flowers with them, pockets of flowers, and that's how they got their sustenance and nourishment. They would smell the flowers because they had no mouths. They couldn't actually eat. I thought that was an interesting connection too.
That is interesting. Yeah.
One thing, I'm going to start with this image right here. This is a girl who has rosacea.
Rosacea. Yeah.
Yeah, she has rosacea, and you'll notice blonde hair, right? Or dirt. Sometimes they call it dirty blonde or whatever. The same type of melanin in the body is responsible for creating this type of hair color and whatnot. And oftentimes these people are more sensitive to the sunlight as well. So this is not like a sunburn she has. However, if she was out there in the sun, she would have to be much more protected than everyone else. So this gives rise to more of a red flush face, like blushing look to them or whatnot. That was going to take me into, and feel free to comment as we go. I'm just going to let these play. And then, if you want me to stop, just let me know. But I do have a question for you as far as the red hair and the royalty connection, right? Obviously, when we look at the royals, especially in England, the English royals, they have very similar, genes and genetics and stuff, right? You yourself seem to carry, some of those, like being, having the red hair and more of a pinkish tone to your skin, like you talked about at the very beginning. We've got the red hair, the fair skin, royalty. So my question to you, this is the hardest question I could think of.
Okay.
Is have you ever just let your mind wander and go, I wonder if have a relatives at some far back in time, not like a demonic, Nephilim relative or whatever, but some sort of connection to, like, giants of old or something. Have you ever considered that personally?
It's possible. I think in a way we're all kind of corrupted by this now. I think it's so diluted into the bloodline of all humanity that, in a sense, we probably all have a little bit of Nephilim corruption, some way, shape, or form. And I think this is a good example of this in a biblical story. Is Esau, for example. He was unlike his brother Jacob. And why was he unlike his brother when they both came from the same source? It's because I think it's a recessive thing. I think it's like the way genes work. I think we all have recessive genes in us that can activate just at any moment for whatever reason. There's the Wangina, by the way, looking like clowns that just came up there. But it's kind of, I think the examples of people just being born with horns randomly, or being born with other odd features that aren't otherwise human as we know them. These things do happen randomly. There's like tribes, for example, where the legs are fused together. You know what I mean? Like, and it seems to be a naturally born thing, and all people have like hoofed feet. You know what I mean? Rather than And it's kind of, you find these traits just randomly pop up sometimes in all humans of any race, you know, and I think that's predominantly a human issue, which is why I think we're not supposed to dwell on genealogies anymore. And Christ was making it clear, you know, that's a fruitless effort to trace, well, I have the perfect blood going back to so and so, therefore I'm uncorrupted. It's kind of, it's fruitless. You're all corrupted, which is why you need to be born again, which is why there needs to be a new heaven and earth, which is why we need to flush the earth of the demonic corruption, which is in the astral realm, and why you all need new bodies, because everything got corrupted. And that's why we even need a savior. That's what Christ even came to do, to undo that issue. There's this corruption issue everywhere, the issue of sin as well, you know, and these other things. So it's kind of, I personally think, yeah, it could be possible, you know, that we all kind of have Nephilim traits. And I think there's a contingent of leaders in the world who really, 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 really love their blood, and their obsession with, like, I go all the way back to, you know, the angels, maybe having the divine right to rule as
right.
themselves to have,
The
you know,
DNA connection.
it's not because they were ordained by God, but it's because they believe they have half angel blood somewhere from when the Watchers mated with humans and created the Nephilim, you know. So it's kind of, but even then, they look pretty human today. If they are Nephilim descendants, they look just like me or you. You can't tell the wheat from the tares, as Christ made it clear. Well, you leave that to him to harvest. Leave that to him and his angels for the final harvest. Because who are you to decide who is and isn't a Nephilim these days? You start going down that path, you'll end up killing people for the wrong reasons. You'll think and that's why we shouldn't focus on blood or genealogies or make our choice or point out, well, that person's a Nephilim and that person's a Nephilim, that person, yeah, and like, because you don't know. And you can't know, you don't know people's hearts either.
Yes,
you don't know whether they're saved or not, whether they walk with God or if they're evil or a psychopath. You can't tell a psychopath just by the way they look.
And you can't tell by them professing, right?
No, exactly.
A lot of times people will lie if they're bad, like, so that they go around saying, oh, I'm the good guy, I'm good, I believe in this, I see this as this way, and I support all of you. I mean, like, the governments of the world do that all the time, and they poison and kill, you know, their own people all the time. And that's something I was talking about too. And I wanted to, you know, when we do, hopefully, you know, we can chat again in the future about different topics, but whenever we do discuss religion and spirituality and stuff, that's something I wanted to touch on, you know, because some people made it very clear, like, oh, he's a Christian and he's not a Christian, and there's, you know, people have opinions and beliefs about all of that, but it's the same thing within religions, you know, like, just as I can't go around saying you are a Nephilim and you are a shapeshifter and you're a this and that or whatever, because we don't know on the inside that energy, what's happening. Is it good or is it bad? Because evil can pretend to be good, right? And good people make mistakes too, you know, like, so that's where the danger of judgment comes into play. However, getting back to the Nephilim clowns and stuff, we can see some of these actions throughout history as they've been described, you know, and obviously that trickles into, you know, people that seem to claim to have a relationship going back to them through their blood, and they find that to be very important, which blood is more physical, right? I'm more of a spiritual person. Like, it is the spirit that gives blood power, not blood that gives, you know, that makes us good or evil or bad or whatnot, but is the spirit within the blood. That's the invisible portion that produces the physical, you know.
It's a great way of phrasing it, the physicality over the spirituality. So yeah, these bloodlines, what do they focus on? They focus on meat, drinking the blood, sacrifice, wealth, tangible material wealth, power, dominance over land, dominance over people. And it's kind of, they're not focusing on higher things. They're not focusing on building up treasures in heaven, as Christ would say. You know, they're not focusing they're obsessed with materialism. And that includes their own power over others within the materialistic dimensional world. And I'm not one of those people who makes, like, I don't think, like, the material world's evil and the spirit world is good. I'm not into that dualism. I think the physical world is a spiritual world, and the spiritual world is just as much as part of the physical one as it is. I think they're both the same thing, personally. And I think, but you need to find a balance between the two. And I think the controllers, the evil ones, lean more heavily towards focusing on the power and dominance of the physical, of the material. They're in that realm of the material, you know, and they perhaps don't even have a connection to anything spiritual, which is why they're so evil in some way. Maybe they've cut that off, or they've fully
more basic and base,
they've descended themselves into carnal desire and focus on that more than anything, which is why they're always raping, stealing, pillaging, murdering, torturing, those type of things, because they're just very on a fleshly, physical, carnal, basic level of consciousness and understanding of reality. And can they still be saved? Of course they can, you know. But will they be? Who knows? That's not up to me to decide, you know. And it's, can you get out of that lower base level? I think it's probably difficult, but
right. Well, that gets us a little deeper.
Yeah.
I have a couple more questions. We're a little towards the end here. I wanted to let's see. Well, I'll point out. I don't know if we mentioned that. Oh yeah, I think we did. We talked about there being different people depicting these from culture to culture across time. I have shown some pictures like the geishas, you know, their face paint. I think it's kabuki or kabuka. I don't know how to pronounce that word, but kabuki. Japanese kabuki dragon lords, the Aborigines, the Dogons.
Do you want me to share some? I have a compilation of images.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I would love that. There's the fear factor, the subconscious phobia. This is something that's evident it's self-evident that we all, generally speaking, as humans, have a fear, that there is and exists a fear of clowns. Even if someone's never seen a clown before, the first time they'll realize, just like the first time I went into a cave, I thought I was fine to go into a cave until I went into a cave and I was like, oh, I'm scared of caves. Like here
we go. I realize now. Yeah.
Yes. I had this here for you. Oh, and then there's like, a lot of horror movies. A lot of the horror main protagonists have white faces. So for some example, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees with his hockey mask, the Joker, the Queen of Hearts, Beetlejuice. We talked about the White Devils, rock and roll. I did throw some pictures up there of the rock and roll. Yeah, whenever you share, I think I'll just approve it on my side. I've never had someone share it before, so just let me know and I'll get it approved.
Sure.
Here's the question I wanted to ask you. Have you ever thought about this? And I've thought about this and considered this because I think about electromagnetics and plasma and electricity, and that it creates light and that it makes light. And this also kind of reminded me of the birth of Noah and his eyes lighting up, and the eyes of the El or Kal-El, Superman, and him having eyes that emit light, and this whole light connection. Let's suppose, well, imagine this. Let me just give a simple scenario. You go into like a dance club, right? And they have all those black lights all over the place, right? Imagine that the Nephilim walked into that same dance club. Obviously they would no longer appear to be the white clowns. Their color would change, right? With the changing color of their surroundings or their environment, they would be regarded as described not as white creatures or white humanoids or beings, but those that might be blue. That's why I also have some pictures of blue looking gods like Dr. Manhattan or Mr. Manhattan, or whatever his name is, and stuff like that. Have you ever considered or thought about that there's a connection with the Nephilim being the white color they are and other colors of quote unquote gods, like within Hinduism, for example, all their blue gods that they have, and maybe they're actually white, but they have a different reflection or a different color based on their environment.
Yeah, but I think, like I said, a snake is a snake is a snake. You look at the variation of reptiles across the animal kingdom, and they're not all the same color. There's a massive variation of color, but you don't see many humans that are blue, let's say. You don't see many humans that have porcelain white skin with fractal color patterns all over it, and again, blue skin. I think, again, it's just a reptilian feature that was inherited down through the generations. I really do think that's what was going on there. Yeah, so yeah, I think the Hindu gods are an interesting one specifically. I think they're a lot older. And I'm not 100% sure where they fit into the narrative here, but
a lot of snake symbolism in that too, serpent symbolism.
I think they go way back. I really do. Yeah, I think it gets really
Now,
weird.
I want to ask you another question. I got like 3 more questions for you just
Sure.
here at the end, and I want to see your presentation. Did you put those up yet?
I'm just sharing screen now. I think I need to select which one I want to share with you
Okay.
quickly.
Yeah, just take your time.
Window.
There's no rush.
Here you go. I'll share this one.
If they represent, let's say that aside from the demonic aspect or spiritual aspect, the physical, if there were physical beings, giant humanoid physical in the flesh, you personally, are you inclined to think that they were aliens, like as in from another world or another physical actual place aside from surface world here, Earth, where we live?
No, I don't believe in outer space or other planets. I believe we're in a closed system, personally. So
Okay.
I wouldn't call them aliens. I think extraterrestrial just means that perhaps from another place on Earth, extra land that I don't know about. Maybe I could do that.
What about within? Do you think there's like a hollow portion, or
It could be underworld, yeah,
Just
sure,
wondering.
or something like that. But I don't think like millions of light years away type of stuff. I think if anything did come that we've considered alien, it came from within our enclosed system, somewhere
enough.
within the Earth, or like I said, maybe another extraterrestrial just means extra land. So
Right.
maybe there's a continent I don't know about. That's not on the maps.
Right.
that would be an extraterrestrial being to me if it turned up, just from my own worldview.
How about this? Whatever they are, if they existed in the past, in the ancient past, and it was so prevalent, their existence, that it led to our conversation today, at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever thought about, or do you think that these clown creatures or Nephilim, or however they originally were, the quintessential reality behind them, do you see or think about whether or not they will return? As in, like, they'll come back or return or show up or be born back into this world, or however.
Yeah, I think they're working on that now. Absolutely. I think not only can they return already through people, they can possess people. That's what demonic possession is all about. And again, as I've explained, the costume of a clown is a useful tool to enable that to happen more readily. I think they are pushing clown aesthetics on people today and on our society. Clown fashion is a very real thing that became popular in 2013 down the catwalks and the runways of all big high-end fashion companies and industries. So we're going to start seeing our own clothing in the outlets start to reflect more clown-like aesthetics. And that's on purpose. It's to create more channels readily to make more people reflect the spirit realm, so people can be more readily possessed and the Nephilim can return through that means. That's one way of doing it. But I also think they're working on creating new vessels for these disembodied spirits to inhabit that aren't human. So I think the transhumanist agenda is angling towards creating an immortal body for them, to a vessel, an empty vessel for them to use, and I
wonder
think
if there's a clone connection with that empty vessel thing.
Cloning could be another way. Yeah, if you could clone human bodies that don't have an already preordained soul from God, then it's an empty vessel game for them, because the problem is with possession, you have to share.
Right.
It's not ideal, it's not optimal, and the host can get kicked out any minute as soon as that vessel realizes they can call in the name of Jesus and cast demons out. And that's not really optimal for a demon, is it? So that what they would love is a vessel that's already empty to begin with. So it's kind of the safe in it, you know what I mean? So I think, I think there's multiple means, but I think they're working on it. But in terms of like physical giants walking around again, I don't think we're going to see that again. But the spirits of these things will get back somehow. And I think transhumanist is the most likely method. Create some kind of brain using AI algorithm and holographic forms, something that's that can house consciousness, and then you've got it, haven't you? Really,
right? And then that actually provides another implication, which provides another question for me, which is, last time that happened, there was an apocalypse. God took care of that and said, "Oh, the world's all toxic and dirty and nasty. There's all these, Nephilim clowns running around, like eating people, scaring people, or whatever. I'm going to wash it away." And there are prophecies, especially within Christianity, saying that there will be a cataclysm by water, and then there will be a cataclysm by fire. And the second one is similar to the first ones. The signs of the coming of the second one are similar to the signs of the comings of the first one, where the things that were happening just before and leading up to the deluge would be repeated and seen once again and once more before a destruction by fire.
That's right. Well, obviously, tribulation in Christianity does talk about, a third of the earth being burnt up, like 2/3 of the earth. And I think there's already, I mean, you know what I believe on this, and you talked to Joe about it. I believe it's already happened. I believe the fervent heat happened. There's plenty of evidence of melted mountains and buildings all over the earth. So I do believe we already have evidence of that. But also, it does say in the very end of Revelation that Gog and Magog will be gathered to make war with the camp of saints, and then fire comes down from heaven and burns everything up. And Gog and Magog could be the Nephilim resurrected, for all we know. And who knows? Mass speculation, because we know Gog and Magog have been represented as giants, especially in British mythology. So who knows? I wouldn't like to be alive to witness these things come back in physical form myself.
Ooh, I can't wait. I'm harnessing all of my ninja skills. I'm out there. I'm ready. My last one for you, and then I'll put your pictures up here too, is do you see or have you seen or what are your connections that you may have made to, like I said, the Dark Ages, the medieval times, as far as that being a time of real mystery, because it's coming up a lot within the millennial reign theories and topics and discussions that people are discussing, the season of Satan, as I call it, or Satan's little season and stuff. Do you see a connection with the Nephilim clown creatures or their manifestations, and that particular time in history?
Yeah, I think there's always been jesters throughout the medieval period, specifically because with the collapse of Rome came a lot of out of work actors who it was kind of seen as like dirty to be an actor in the new Catholicized Rome. It was kind of like prostitutes are actors, you know what I mean? It's that kind of like, it's a filthy profession. So a lot of them had to leave and travel to find work, and that became the Commedia dell'arte movement, which we're told through that time period was a roving troupe of traveling actors who went from village to village putting on quick improvised shows. But a lot of them actually became jesters for like kings and aristocracy and rich people, personal comedians, basically, for hire, mercenary comedians for hire. And that developed into the tradition of the court jester, the kingly jester, because it's kind of, even though it was frowned upon to be an actor, the only person who was really allowed to have them publicly was the king, because who the hell is going to argue with the king, So it kind of became like a commodity to have your own jester, a commodity of the rich, and the affluent. If you haven't got your own jester, are you even rich? It's that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
And that's where the court jester thing comes from. But jesters fundamentally are just a mimic of the king. That's what they're supposed to be. They are just a copy of the king. So they're not actually anything to do with Nephilim, really.
Yeah. They have a scepter and their
exactly. And the
and
crown, the jester hat is a floppy crown. Yeah, it's everything. It's like a mockery of the king, And there is something to be said, though, for them having the ears of the king and influence over the king. And if they are perhaps channeling the spirits of the Nephilim, have the Nephilim always had the ear of the king? Have demons always been whispering in the ears of the king and influencing the king's decisions, whether they knew that was what was going on or not, who knows?
Or the president, it doesn't have to be the king.
But I've seen no indication in my research yet that court jesters are representations of the Nephilim. A clown and a jester aren't the same thing. But then you find later in carnival settings, especially in the Venetian carnivals and the Spanish carnival and these type of things, you find there are Harlequin-esque characters which represent the wild man, which have kind of blended with jesters. And now you have this new hybrid jester-like visage coming from the Italian Venetian festivals. But they're like half clown, half court jester. So then you're getting closer now to the jester turning into a clown-like image, more akin to what you see in the DMT realm, with a Venetian jester mask is a lot like a DMT jester, and that's why we have the word jester to describe what they look like in the DMT realm. So I think it developed through the Middle Ages a lot like Harlequin did, from the wilder man to to the leotard wearing harlequin patterned fancy lad, to then the clown, which then became the demonic representation of the Rakshasa. I think in the same way, through the medieval period, the court jester developed into a more pale-skinned representation of demons, for sure. So yeah, but the problem is with the Dark Ages, it's kind of shrouded in mystery,
Right.
especially. And when it comes to clowns, again, what we call a clown is really a very new invention from the 1800s. There's always been comedians since human beings have existed. Humans have always needed comedy. There's always been funny men, but that's not a clown. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
That's,
No,
it's not the same thing.
Definitely a lot different. I want to for this will be the last thing that we do. I'd like to I'm going to put your screen up here and allow you a moment to just sort of go through some of your own images. I just put through some for this presentation, and they make sense. They make sense more as we have gone throughout our conversation. At first, people are like, "What does that have to do with it?" And then we've talked about it. Let me put yours up here, and I'll allow you to sort of point out some things visually, because I'm a visual person. On my website, on my YouTube channel, I like to display a lot of pictures and movies and stuff like that. I'm going to let you take the floor and just share with everyone what you found here.
Sure thing. So I don't think can you see the zooming in there? Yeah. So what you're seeing here is the cookery of Bulgaria and Romania. Okay, so this is a very ancient tradition where they dress like the wild man in their region, and they dance and jingle themselves around with bells, and they do it to scare away spirits. This is called apotropaic. That's the version of why they dress like these things. They believe they're warding away evil spirits by dressing like evil spirits.
Yes.
I think they're naive and wrong. That's my take on all of this, because nowhere else in the world other than Europe does anyone believe that dressing like something scares away a demon. Okay, they believe they're channeling demons. They can't both be right, is what I'm saying. Yes. Someone's wrong here.
Can you make that bigger?
Yes, I can. So if you zoom in on this one, this is an example. Cool. And you can see here that they've got what looks like a typical Western party hat. You're talking about conical hats. You look at these things, they got white skin, rosy cheeks,
right?
Like a clown, a red nose.
It does look like a clown.
And these tall pom-pom covered, multicolored covered hats. These are Western party hats. So they've borrowed it from these traditions, is what I'm saying. And here's some clowns. Again, these are carnival images, carnivals of Europe, kind of modern iterations. In the music industry, they dress the same way, do the same thing. They're channeling demons for power, influence, probably talent as well. Here's the Anu of Japan, a very ancient tribe of Japan. The women, traditionally, once they reach puberty, do this to their face with tattoo ink. They give themselves a wide smile. An odd tradition, don't you think? Why is that a beauty standard for fertile women? Well, it's probably because they're trying to emulate something like you were talking about earlier, a standard of elvish beauty, shall we say. I think it's passed down through the generations. There's the traditional theatre masks. Here's an African tribe channeling their ancestors. Polka dots, white skin, predominantly with red dots. That the colors there red, but you can't see it, with these reed headdresses. Now they spin around really fast and end up looking like a blur because they're trying to make themselves look like the spirits in the spirit realm. And these are essentially sound suits, that they're wearing. Just another example of a clown. This is the Rakshasas of Sri Lanka. And they are the wide grinning, tongue sticking out, bulging eyed serpent hybrid humans. These are the Nephilim. And they do these dances to ward them away or evoke them. Here's the Heyoka or the Pueblo clown cachinas of the Americas. Black and white fractal patterns, odd red-haired horned antennae, serpent skin, wide smile, eating watermelon to mimic flesh. And they even have red shoes, quite traditionally as well, like the clowns. They believe they're channeling the spirits of the Wakinyan spirits, which are the thunder gods. But they also have equated it to what they call what we call in the Western tradition a clown society. The clown plays the role of both shaman and example of how not to behave. So it plays quite an integral role to their cultures. But when you look at what they're dressing like, you realize it's the same all throughout the plains of America, but each tribe dresses this way for a different reason. In the dry, arid regions of Nevada, the Hopi dress this way because they want to bring rain because it represents the rain god.
Yeah.
But if you go further north into America, where it rains all the time, they dress this way to communicate with the Wakinian spirit, to say, please don't bring the storm. We're terrified. We have enough. It will wipe us
Interesting.
out. You know, so they do it. They're pleading with the same God for different reasons. I want rain. I don't want rain. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
fascinating, but what they dress like is the same because they're communicating with the same spirit. You know, I
Yeah.
find that quite interesting.
And
Oh,
I want to ask you something real quick about,
ahead,
because that image that you had up just a second ago, that with the little one, yeah, with the horns. So I was gonna ask you too. I forgot to write it down in my notes. Have you come across many examples of clown type motifs where they have horns?
Yeah, well, predominantly
like that one, obviously.
Jesters have the crown that we say represents, let's say, you know, the crown of the king, but it also looks like horns when you actually look at it realistically.
Okay,
but yeah, but you don't see many depictions of clowns. Well, you'll see what let's just go through. I'll do it quickly, and there's plenty of examples of what each culture dresses like.
Okay,
it gets weird. All right. So what I'm saying here, there's always a new iteration of the Joker every generation. There always will be, because they want people dressing like that for Halloween. Okay, because Halloween is when the spirit realm and the physical realm are at its thinnest point, and that's when more readily you can channel demons, I believe. So if they can get more people popularized and dressing like the latest Joker every Halloween, then they're opening up more channels more readily. So I think you'll always see the reboot of the Joker every so often. It's really common, and for that reason.
Yeah.
This is the Batibola of Rio. They are predominantly bloodthirsty gangs who dress this way. It's based off of a Portuguese tradition, which I'll show you as we go along. But it's more a modern version of a Portuguese tradition. But they dress like this, like clowns.
Ah, yes. Bearded too. That's another thing too. Is that typically people see clowns clean shaven, but in antiquity, a lot of times they had beards and facial hair.
Yeah, it varies with this particular troop. You'll see as it goes on, and obviously the Queen, you showed that one. So this is the the Bhutakola, I think they're called, or the Theum of India. And so a member of the tribe dresses this way, channels the spirit, and the rest of the tribe communicate with the spirit through them, and they give them like live chickens, and they rip the heads off the chickens and eat them because the demon inside wants the blood. It's really, really dodgy, but that's a common one. Here's Joseph Grimaldi wearing the first clown costume modeled after the Rakshasa demons. Here's another example of them channeling the same demons here in India again. Another version of the Bhutakola, as I showed you there. Here's a cult in Ukraine or Lithuania who are satanic but dress like clowns.
Wow, it looks like it's from a movie. That's real life right there.
That's real life. This is a real satanic cult.
It's like a movie scene.
Who dress like demons, who dress like clowns. Yeah. This is a fashion style that came out from I can't remember what it's called specifically, but it's inspired by Lee Bowery, a famous fashionista. Here's the Venetian clown style I was talking about. So this is your mashup between clown and court jester. This is what it modernized into today. And this is closer to what you see in the DMT realm today, I would say. So dressing this way is just dangerous.
More fractal looking.
More fractal looking, yeah, I would say. Here's another African tribe. Something similar. Harlequin design, white face, typical face paint, similar to something Kiss would do in the 80s glam rock fashion. But this is them channeling their ancestors again, trying to look like that Venetian jester, no doubt, but this is far more ancient. You know, it's something similar. Here's what people claim to see in the DMT realm, something like this. Here's a stylized version. Here's I think this is... I don't want to say, but obviously we're talking about somewhere in the Asian continent here. But look at the black slits down the eyes, a lot like of clown makeup. These represent generals or their versions of ancestors, ancient war heroes as they call them. But this is what they believe the spirits of the undead look like to them. Here's that cult I was telling you about again.
Wow.
Here's an African
They take great
tribe.
Pictures.
Here's another African tribe, red hair. Predominant trait that they've redded their hair up to emulate some of their beauty standard there. This is a statue in Bern, Switzerland, of a giant eating babies. that they've just got there. You can't really see the details on this one, unfortunately. Here's Batibola again. Here's the Thayum again through the Bhutakolo in India. Here's the tribe around the figurehead who's channeling the spirit. Here's another version of the same thing. Here's the creepy clown sightings. You've got these as well, representing the spirits of the dead, the hungering spirits. More DMT jesters. There's Grimaldi in his first costume again. Here's some Chinese gods looking with the big bulging guys, multicolored skin, white skin, red hair version here. This is in a temple in China. Another African representation of the fractal pattern black and white lined beings. Just like you saw the black and white lined beings of the Americas I showed you earlier through the Pueblo clowns. This is Africa, a completely different continent, doing the same thing with the big, wide, glowing, bulging eyes motif there as well. Here's the Batibola again. Here's Harlequin's progression. He started off at the top here, as you can see, wearing plain, brutish, white skin rags with multicolored patches. And then he developed, as time went on, into this fancy leotard-wearing fancy lad. By this point, the clown took over as the demonic character. By the time so that's where the change happened there. There's your demonic thing again. They always wear bells during these rituals and shake themselves around and make a lot of noise. Here's the fighter Con. This is Vietnam, I think. And they have their own Day of the Dead ritual where they all dress in these multicolored ribbon fractal pattern psychedelic clothes, put on these giant masks with giant serpentine, sharp tooth, wide grins. So they're representing the Nephilim of their flavor, their kind. Here's another cannibalistic tribe in Papua New Guinea in the mountains, and they wear white skin up, and wear red reeds as a headdress. I'm sorry for the low quality images here, by the way. I've drawn from a slideshow I use for OBS, so I've had to load
okay.
Yeah, but you can get the gist from these images alone, can't you? What I'm talking about here. This same tradition: white the skin up, red reeds, red up the hair. So that's what they're trying to emulate, something, aren't they? Here's the idea of the DMT jesters messing with humans for their own pleasures. So this is a shaman in Korea called a Mudang. She wears the black top hat, a lot like the channelers or the Freemasons wear a black top hat as well. And she channels the spirits of the entities. And she has to go through a channeling ritual. And she wears very clown-like, ringleader-like clothing as a shaman for Korea. There's Joseph Grimaldi again. There's the Kalasung Sang demon. This is...
Looks like a frog.
This is a Rakshasa demon, but from Bali. And you'll find Joseph Grimaldi was modeled in the same way.
Yeah, check that out.
There you go. That's where the costume was inspired by, the Rakshasas of India, specifically the Balinese or the Thailand variants. So there you go, same character. And that's where the clown costume come from. That's what it's copied after. And there's some early clowns again. Here's a Japanese or a Chinese version of the same god you saw in that other temple with a big long tongue sticking out, sharp buck teeth, pale white skin, red hair, red lips. Here's the Bhutakolo again. Now this guy is now possessed, and the tribe is acting accordingly.
Right.
Because, and this is when they throw things at it like chickens and alcohol and food and whatever, and the person
to appease it.
Yeah, and then it tells them stuff. Yeah.
Interesting.
Here's that statue in Bern eating babies.
Oh, look at that.
And that's in Switzerland. Here is a early poster from the Ringling Bros Barnum and Bailey combined show. You'll notice this is actually a giant just above the circus tent here.
Ah, yeah.
They're telling you symbolically what it represents.
Yeah, there's another giant clown. When I was showing those pictures, was the circus clown as a sign in Las Vegas. Yeah. That's actually a giant clown too.
This is from a festival in. I always forget this one. Is it Switzerland again? It might be Switzerland again. Wow. Anyway, they do this thing where they go through the streets wearing these masks, like a common motif, but this is very Nephilim-esque.
Yeah.
Here's some old masks from Sri Lanka representing the Rakshasa demon. This is their flavor of the same thing. Tongue sticking out, big wide red-lipped grin, bulging eyes, reptilian features. There's the snake embedded into the headdress and everything. That's the most common motif. Here's another example of the undead spirits. It's just a clown. Here's fashion inspired by the Heyoka demons. Here's a Papua New Guinea tribe, red nose, red feathered headdress. But they didn't white the skin up on this one, so they're lacking that variation. But they do have white chalk motifs around the neck there. As you can see. So you're seeing these common motifs across these cultures. They're trying to emulate something. So red hair, red nose. There's a clown on the front cover. There's that cult again. Here's a Wangina. Very clown-like. Literally has the ruffle. This is an ancient Aboriginal Kimberley region god. Okay, this is not something someone's just made up in the 20th century. This is an ancient god. Okay, this is what they paint them as on the rocks in Australia. It looks like a clown.
Yeah,
No
and it almost even around the shoulders looks like it has like one of those collars or something that might be bigger.
It even has a black pom pom on its chest.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, with polka dot patterns on the skin as well, like a clown costume with a red afro. It's there, but no mouth. Notice no mouth on these.
Yeah,
ones.
no mouth. Check that out.
Interesting. There's those generals again I was telling you about. Here's the Wangina and the rainbow serpents, the offspring of the rainbow serpents. More variations of old clowns. Here's a Rakshasa mask again. There's that Papua New Guinea tribe again. These are the face changers. The magicians who rapidly change their mask in China, and they keep changing their faces over and over and over again. But as you can see, the motifs are very similar to clown or hybrid human dragon hybrids. Here's a tribe in Africa who this is their beauty standards. The men have to be tall, and they have to have very white teeth and big whites of the eyes, and that's considered attractive to the females. So they get incredibly high on this amphetamine-based drug. Chatter their teeth over and over again, maintaining a wide-eyed look and a smile while wearing red motifs. Can you see there the hair at the top with these adorned jewel patterned elongated skull hats, and the tallest, most big teeth, bulging eyed male is considered the most attractive. So that's a beauty standard again, copied from Nephilim features. Jester there. Obviously Halloween comes around, they're always selling the clown features there. Got the red head motif of the Oni demons here of Japan and China. And that's that festival again I was telling you about. Here's another example of the guy being possessed in the Butacola and the tribe obviously taking part in the whole thing to gain information and power from it. A more modern version of Portuguese rituals there in Brazil. Red Nose Day comes around every year in the Western Hemisphere, raising money for kids in need, but they get the entire Western Hemisphere to dress like a clown once a year in a yearly ritual. Now you have to wonder what the truth of that whole thing is, don't you?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. More clown posters. I mean, if there's nothing more demonic.
The Wendy's girl has red hair too.
Oh, yeah.
That guy had like the little Pippi Longstocking look.
That's right. I would say there's nothing more demonic looking than this thing right here. No one has a mouth that wide. Okay, naturally. That's a demon. I'm sorry. They're just telling you outright on these posters what they're actually representing. There's the clown sightings. There's the Royal Order of the Jesters pin. Mirth is king is the slogan. The little guy you see there is their mascot. He's called a Billykins. It's basically a naked man baby with his penis erect. That's their logo. More clowns. Clowns using media. This is what the Batabola is based on. This is the Spanish Portuguese version of the same thing. More Theum rituals. Old clowns. There's the Wildman rendition, one version of it. There's the Phytocon again. They all have their own take on those big, wide, grinning masks I mentioned earlier. Here's the Cookery of Bulgaria doing the same thing. This is the hairy variant of the Nephilim with multicolored patterns. Look at the clothing he's wearing.
Very common. Like abominable snowmen or something.
That too. Yeah, absolutely. This one is in Sri Lanka. This is a story of a god who was born of a queen. The king chucked the queen into a pit after killing her with the baby, because the baby looked like this thing. And the king was like, that's not my son. You've clearly cheated on me with a god or something.
Sounds familiar.
Anyway, this Nephilim monster grew up, ate his mother's carcass, and then decimated the entire village and killed everybody, including his father, supposedly. And you can't see it here, but he's actually holding the bodies of 2 humans that he's about to eat in his hands. But look at that grin. Look at that smile. Look at that Nephilim human monster serpent human hybrid. Here's a more African ritual, channeling something there. Old rituals of Greek theater of Dionysus. More African representations of ancestor spirits. More of the Buthakola with the tongue sticking out mask there, channeling the gods. More of the Batibola, modern media, the cookery again. Pom-poms, bright colors, typical clownish features. African tribes, Harlequin. Look at this one. This is very common in Africa as well. And also similar of the Morris dancers of England. They do the same thing, dressed in the same way, multicolored ribbons. This is what they look like in spirit form. They're trying to communicate with their spirit versions. Dragons, more of a African spirit, ancestor worship, channeling, Buthakola. Let's keep going. A lot of them will be the same because obviously they're all in like grouped images.
Right, yeah.
There they are, channeling spirits again in another African tribe. They'll spin around in circles wearing these suits to become a blur to try and look more like ethereal spirits. So
right.
They call them sound suits. There's the Commedia dell'arte in the medieval period. There's the creator of the first circus, Philip Astley. More African spirit worship. Elongating the skull for the babies there. Common practice, a beauty practice to try and look like the gods. Dragons. This is what their parents would have looked like. They're ordaining all the temples of China practically. Here's what the offspring would have looked like. This is the costume the first clown was inspired by. This is what Joseph Grimaldi was wearing. Costumes inspired by this thing. And here's a Rakshasa demon. Same
and it
thing.
even has like the hair how the clowns often have the hair just kind of shooting off to the sides like that.
Absolutely, it does. Just like this.
Yeah.
There's a daughter of Cain, you could call it.
Yeah.
And there's the rhinophyma. A prime example of a rhinophyma. Yeah. Here's a child screaming in horror of what it's witnessing.
Poor kid.
I'd be scared if I saw that thing too, and that thing grabbed me too.
Yeah.
There's the Buthakola about to eat a live chicken, given to him as a sacrifice. He's even got a bit of blood smeared around his mouth already there, as you can see. Because that's what they do. That's what the demon wants that they're channeling. Again, more of that tradition. There's the Buthakola. So this here is the original ancient tradition still going on in northern Spain. Here's the modern version happening in Rio. It's kind of, they really lean heavily into the demonic in the more modern iteration. Those are the shamans of Korea. More clowns. Here's more examples of the wild man of Europe. These are some AI generated images people sent me to try and represent what I was talking about. They would have looked something like this, but maybe not like that. I think these ones are fun. So
Yeah.
these are AI now, by the way. I'll let you know when they're not AI anymore. But people try to send me examples of what it would have looked like, and it's pretty terrifying, isn't it, when you actually consider it? Yeah, some of them are good, some of them are bad, I would say.
Well, it's like
that's a great one. That's actually more like what they would have looked like, I'd say. That's a
wow,
good AI.
that one almost has like the Venom mouth, like the Spider-Man
AI
Venom.
probably stole that, yeah.
Probably,
So,
yeah.
But that's a good example.
But truth permeates,
Yeah.
through the cartoon. Like,
so here's another African spirit worship. This is a lot of links to like Haiti voodoo culture comes from this culture, from Africa all the way to Haiti. There's the Buthakola again. This is a Gorgon of Greek mythology. This is what the Gorgons actually look like. Everyone thinks they look like Medusa with snakes for hair.
Right.
This is what the Gorgon actually looked like. Okay, they didn't have snakes for hair. They were a hybrid of a human and a snake. Mm-hmm. Okay, and this is what they look like. A lot like the Rakshasas of India, very similar.
Right.
So there's another Raksha mask of India, East India Company, Shriners International. They're dressing like clowns. There's another Rakshasa of India mask. That is an Inuit mask of their own version of the Nephilim. They have their representations in northern Canada. There's that same monster I was telling you about that ate its own mother's carcass. There it is with the leg sticking out the mouth.
Wow.
Here's elongated skulls of Africa, the bells again of the Portuguese tradition, shamans. That's Pedrolino originally. Here's another Rakshasa mask. As you can see, tongue sticking out slightly, bulging eyes, pale white skin, predominantly red lips, more Heyoka. So as I just skip through these now, you start to see there's a running theme in all these cultures, and they all have their own culturally specific way of representing them, but they're all representing fundamentally the same creature. Okay, because these vary between many cultures. The Shriners love it, they're in on it. But as you can see, that they look like clowns,
right? Yeah.
and our clown is just our version of these cultures' creatures. It's just our version. There's a Selknam tribe of South America, otherwise extinct, this tribe now, but this is what we have remaining from them, these memories, and these are them channeling the spirits that tell you what they were doing. And here's side-by-side examples of the dragons of China, their offspring, the Nephilim, and a modern clown.
Wow.
All next to each other. This is where we get the clown from. It's our version of these things.
Sometimes with the hairstyles, how like you'll see like it'll come out and then there's one on the top too.
Yeah.
Because I wonder, I associate, some of these with the elven race, like I was saying. They're said to have lived for a very long time, not just like they had, lived for 60 to 80 years or 100 years even, but longer than that. And I speculate and wonder if they did live for hundreds of years, if they went through various stages of puberty, not just one stage of puberty as we typically do as humans with short lifespans, but being that they would, if they're humanoid, similar to us, we have like a tailbone where they say, people can grow tails, and they do. People are born with tails. They just get, some people did just cut them off at birth if they have a tail or whatever. Horns, like I've shown on my channel many times, people grow horns. Some people grow horns when they get way older in age. There's different pictures. Usually they just cut them off, and it's an issue. They don't want to go out in public with horns or whatever. And they can be grotesque looking and stuff. But I wonder if the Nephilim lived to be hundreds and hundreds of years, if they did start to grow little, like bony parts of their skeletal structure or something, obviously their hair is going to move with that. Their scalp is going to move with that. I wonder if it's starting to just like show us their, stages of puberty or something that they went through with the different features, the hair and all that stuff, and even the wild men too, like just growing an abundance of hair all over the place. That's why I say like it's an elven standard of beauty for me, because let's suppose they live to be 1,000 years old, okay, and then we'll wrap up here in just a minute too, but let's say they live to be 1,000 years old, and they're actual physical humanoid beings. Well, the older ones typically do less work. The ones in charge are older and they do less work, so they put the younger ones in charge. So those are the ones humanity sees, and they're around all of the time, and they would probably be clean shaven. They haven't gone through their version of puberty yet or whatnot, more robust and things of that nature. But then the older ones, as they get older, they're more bearded, clown looking, or have horns or possibly tails or who knows what, Thank you so much, Paul. I just want to say that you're an awesome guest. The reason I really wanted to have you on my channel is because you have a good mix, from my perspective, of interesting topics like the book that you've written about, other things on your YouTube channel as well, and somebody who, appears to me at least to be open-minded and have good energy about you, and somebody that is honestly and earnestly looking for the truth for yourself, and you're sharing your path with others, and I can resonate with that. I'm going to give you the stage for a sec, so that way you can give your self shout outs and let people know where to find you and how to get your book. Specifically, your book sales are through the roof right now, very popular. I got my own copy right here. I look forward to checking it out, and here you go.
Perfect. Oh, well, thanks for having me. First of all, it's been great. Like I said, I've been a follower of yours for years, so I'm happy to finally connect with you, and we can definitely do this again, and we can talk about any topic you want. Like I said, I'm I'm a scattershot conspiracy theorist first and foremost. I talk about anything and everything on my channel. I am predominantly known as the Nephilim Clown guy. If you want to get your own copy, just go to Amazon, search The Nephilim Look Like Clowns. You can't miss it. It's pretty obvious what it looks like, and give it a read if you want. If you don't want to read the book, all the information is readily available for free on my channel in a 44 episode series under a playlist called The Nephilim Look Like Clowns, and it spans over 8 years. And the early videos, they're not that great because it's a fresh idea. You know, I'm just discovering it and figuring it out. The later episodes are a lot more put together, a lot more professional, a lot more visually presentational style. So you can see literally my entire thought process from start to today if you go and check out that playlist if you're interested. But it has all the images to back up what I'm talking about. I showed you just a third, maybe a quarter of the images I've collected over the years, you know, that depict and showcase the aesthetical similarities between all these cultures across all continents, as well as the history of the clown. And I do flesh it out a lot more than what we talked about here today. But I think we did a good job today of giving a very holistic image of the type of work I do on this subject. You can find me on Understanding Conspiracy. That's my YouTube channel. And like I said, you'll find I talk about a lot of other things on there as well. But I hope you had a good time listening to this today. Again, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I have actually had a great time doing this, and we've like just, this is a Cliff's Notes, right? Like we've just scratched the surface of, you know, so many different things that we could really go into even more great detail about. If we do, I noticed you got little cracks for the teeth too, little pointed teeth there.
yeah,
I like that. I'm interested in so many different subjects. Maybe the next time we can get into the little season topic. I love that one. You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
I love being able to provide my own little insights and whatnot. Obviously, JC and me, we talked about, you know, sort of touched on that while discussing the Middle Ages and the medieval times and stuff. And yeah, that'll be another topic that I'm really interested in talking about with you as well. Thank you so much for joining me. Everybody, this is Understanding Conspiracy. If you're in my chat, let's give him a round of applause through positive emojis, hearts, stars, happy faces, whatever you guys like to, just to send him off with a tsunami of good vibes. To represent the Good Vibe Tribe over here on my channel. Be sure to check out my website, JayDreamerZ.com. I've got my own books on Amazon as well, but I'll save all of that for another time. I have my copy of The Nephilim Look Like Clowns, and it's very well done, very well put together, very professional looking. And I'm actually gonna run your ad one more time before we go. I love it so much. I'm so inspired. I'm like, man, I need a cool ad like this. But let's go ahead and I'll finish by sharing the ad, and then we'll do the outro, and then I'll just say goodbye personally to you in just a second.
Sure thing.
Oh, I gotta figure out how to do this. Hold on one second. That's not it.
Are you tired of the same old conversations? Do you often find yourself struggling to know what to say? Are you over discussing the news, sports ball, or the weather? It's time to put boring discussions behind you by leaving a copy of The Nephilim Look Like Clowns on your coffee table, your toilet, your local library, mother's car, boss's office desk, or that person you really likes bed instead.
What the hell is this?
Oh, that? Why, it's just a book about how the modern costume of a clown is a caricature of ancient giants and modern demons.
Stay away from my children.
This is a conversation you can't wait to have.
My family used to think I was crazy, but thanks to The Nephilim Look Like Clowns, they know I'm crazy.
The Nephilim Looks Like Clowns. It's no laughing matter.